Light it up on a Monday edition of Light the Tower on the Horn, live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, we thank you so much for being a part of today's presentation. I am Jeff Howe, back from vacation, get the batteries recharged. Was out a couple of days before last week too, so a prolonged absence. Those of you who were anxiously anticipating my demise, it has been greatly exaggerated, I'm sorry to say. So I'm back, not in the big chair, but the next to biggest chair, if that makes any sense. Craig starts his vacation today, so we won't see or hear from Craig until Big 12 Media Days. That is the 12th and 13th and 14th. 12th and 13th, I think is what it is at AT&T Stadium. I believe our esteemed producer behind the glass, the real MVP of Light the Tower, the play-by-play prodigy, Cameron Parker. Cameron, are you going to Media Days? Have you figured that out yet?
Yeah, I'll be up there with you guys.
Nice. So Cam will be there. Hey, I need to apologize to Cam before we get started. Sometimes I forget that even though my microphone is off, so Gen Pop can't hear me, Cam still can, and I just coughed into the microphone before we got started. So Cam, I apologize.
That's all right, Jeff. I'm glad you're back, and for those not watching on Twitch, Jeff, you're glowing. I mean, you look recharged, you look refocused. Walt Disney World must have been very good to you.
We'll get to the vacation recap for sure.
I want a full recap of your experience at Walt Disney, because the text messages that you were sending me and Craig would read them on air. Sound like some great stories.
Yeah. Do you guys like the one about the safari?
Yes, that was the best one.
Yeah, it was very good. Actually, you know what, Cam? Let me double check this because I don't want to jump the gun here. I don't like being the guy that jumps the gun.
Breaking news?
We may be starting the show off with some breaking news, some breaking Texas basketball news. Maybe, perhaps. Yes, we are starting with some Texas basketball breaking news. Give me that breaking news sounder, Cam. Rodney Terry is, in fact, going to have a member of the 2023 recruiting class on his roster for the coming season, for the 2023-24 season, his first season at the helm. Chris Johnson, 4-star combo guard, out of Montverde Academy, but by way of Fort Bend Elkins, he has committed to the Texas Longhorns. That is coming from our Brandon Jenkins at 24/7 Sports. So there it is. Chris Johnson is officially a member of the Texas signing class. You'll remember Chris Johnson signed with Kansas, got out of his national letter of intent with Kansas, and he is now going to Texas. A lot of Texas ties he had. TJ Ford, he was really close to TJ Ford. TJ's been kind of a mentor to him. So this is a really big get for Texas. Cam, any initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, the 6'4" combo guard. Really like his upside. Probably needs to develop his 3-point shot a little bit more.
Yeah.
But he's an exciting prospect, I think, to this Texas roster.
I like it because when you look at the makeup of it and you think about, you always have to be thinking a year ahead in college basketball if you can. I like the fact that you've got 1 year with the Max Asmus. All-American, 2-time Summit League Player of the Year, one of the active leading scorer in Division I. And most likely, I think one more year with Tyrese Hunter. I think you knew you were going to get at least one. You were hoping for two. I think three would be pushing it for Tyrese, whether that's taking another crack at the NBA, you're starting a career overseas, taking a shot on getting a two-way deal like Jabari Rice got. Whatever it is, you're only thinking you maybe got one more year with Tyrese left. So that sets you up for the 24-25 season, in addition to anybody that you get out of the portal or in the class of 2024. I like the fact that now you can go into what would be Rodney Terry's second full season, most likely with Chris Johnson and Kendall Weaver just taking steps up from what probably are going to be roles on the periphery this year to taking major roles with that team the following year as being, okay, these guys are our backcourt. Now let's surround them with whatever we feel like we need.
Yeah, and he gets a full year to develop. Probably won't get a lot of playing time this year, especially with how deep the Texas front court is, but gives him time to, learn and develop more and more and go into his sophomore season, possibly his redshirt freshman season, as someone who's ready to, be a big part of the point guard, shooting guard responsibilities.
This is kind of torpedoed my plan for the show because I didn't think Chris Johnson was going to make his commitment this early. I knew it was coming today, but I was thinking it was going to be more something like this afternoon. So we're going to talk Texas basketball in the second hour Longhorn Notebook, but we'll just switch it up. And honestly, the first hour Longhorn Notebook, we're gonna do a little FAQ at the bottom of the hour, Cam. I'm sending Cam some questions. I've got some questions for Cam. The Cam is going to ask me. This stems from something I did right before, literally a couple hours before I went to the airport on Monday. My buddy Kevin Flaherty, who covers national college football and basketball for us at 24/7 Sports, sent me some Texas questions for a kind of he's doing a publisher/writer Q&A with most of the Big 12 schools, teams inside what's going to be our preseason top 25 at 24/7 Sports. And basically it was questions. I'm like, I've been asked these a lot. So we're going to go down those, kind of a refresher. Cam, like when middle school and high school, it usually happens in math class. I don't know why it happens in math class. Like you show up for the first day of class and the teacher's like, I'm going to give you a quiz. This isn't for a grade. I just want to see how much you retained over the summer, kind of where you're at. So it's be a nice refresher for me, just kind of get me back in the groove of things.
Did you purposely would fail on those quizzes so you could just go back to easier math work?
It was math, dog. I didn't have to try hard to fail with that.
I'm right there with you.
Short.
Right there with you.
I was not very prolific at math.
No pre-calc for Jeff Howe at
no. As a matter of
ISD.
As a matter of fact, I liked Algebra 2 so much I took the second half of it twice. I just liked it that much. I was so intrigued by it. But no, that's so. Anyway, if you're just tuning in, Chris Johnson, 4-star combo guard out of Montverde Academy in Florida. Originally, he's a Houston kid out of Fort Bend, Elkins. He has committed to the Texas Longhorns in our 24/7 Sports in-house rankings, the number 73 overall prospect in the class of 2023. And Cam, it avoids the 2023 class for Rodney Terry being a disaster right now. When you look at just the way things shook out, and honestly, it was no fault of Rodney Terry. AJ Johnson took what could end up being a very lucrative deal with the NBL in Australia. And then Ron Holland gets out of his letter of intent, and Arkansas fans just, go number one all over themselves, thinking, oh my gosh, we got Ron Holland. Well, no, you don't. He's going to the G League Ignite program, and then he'll be a top 3 to 5 pick in the 2024 draft. So, to no fault of his own, Rodney Terry has no high school recruits. And I knew they were kicking the tires on some guys that hadn't signed yet, or they probably weren't going to sign a national letter of intent. We're just going to do the thing where you just show up on campus. They kicked the tires on some guys, and either it wasn't the right fit or just the timing was off or whatever the case was. It just didn't work out. But the Chris Johnson timing played very much in their favor. You had a kid that got out of his national letter of intent at the time where you were looking to add another piece to your roster. Forget recruiting class. You were just looking at a piece to your roster. I know they were leaving no stone unturned in the portal. They're doing a lot of things. And I don't think they're going to leave any stone unturned. I don't think they're looking to finish adding pieces, Cam, until the bitter end. Because now you've got this West Virginia deal with, it sounds like Kirk Carissa is going to stay at West Virginia. He's going to stay in Morgantown. But, what's that roster going to look like? You've got other guys. I just saw yesterday, Javon Quinley from Alabama entered the portal.
As a grad transfer.
Yeah. That came out of left field. So they're not going to stop roster building until it is no longer conducive to building a roster, until it is absolutely beyond the point of where it's productive. When it gets counterproductive, they'll stop. But they're going to go up until the 11th hour looking to add pieces. But they add Chris Johnson. And you're right, Cam. You've got a guy that definitely needs to work on, from what our guys at 24/7 Sports have observed, Adam Finkelstein, Brandon Jenkins, the guys that have seen him in person multiple times. Kind of the book on Chris Johnson is he needs to work on not so much shot selection, but mechanics. Just kind of refine some things. And I think this is kind of where you get, the waters can get muddied a little bit when you're looking at college basketball guys, especially guys that are going to be guards, guys that you expect to be shooters. I think sometimes you can get too caught up in percentages and think, well, this guy either can shoot or he can't shoot. Bill Self, you look at the undervalued guards Bill Self has recruited that end up being really good shooters, because that Kansas staff has done a really good job. Does Kansas get 5-star prospects? Yes, they do. Do they get guys that are, potentially one and done lottery picks? Absolutely, without question. But that staff does a really good job, and I think Scott Drew at Baylor does a really good job of this too. They get guys that when they watch them on the AAU scene, they watch them in high school, guys that just have really good, maybe not even good baseline mechanics, but there's something that they see in their mechanics, in their shot that says, you know what, we can refine that, and that guy can be a good shooter, especially if it's a guy like Chris Johnson that you don't need him to be a 40% three-point shooter, a 35% three-point shooter right out of the gate. He can find whatever his role is, mix in with Kendall Weaver, knowing that Tyrese Hunter and Max Aisman are going to run your backcourt. So I love this addition for the Longhorns, getting Chris Johnson as a 2023 commit right now. Not going to sign the national letter of intent, probably going to sign some kind of scholarship agreement, sign the scholarship papers, and he'll be on campus for the second summer session. So really good news to start off. That's good stuff, Cam. I come back in the first segment back. We got breaking Texas basketball news.
There's so Anwar Richardson, right, from OB. He always, when he goes on vacation, he likes to talk about, well, when I go on vacation, everyone starts committing to Texas. I don't know, Jeff, because you're also on vacation, and the Texas recruiting class picked up 5 football commits while you were in Walt Disney World.
Man.
Plus your first day back in the first 5 minutes of the show. Texas adds Chris Johnson. I don't know. I'm not saying anything, but hey, I'm just saying.
Yeah. That was kind of Mike Roach's deal. Like, Mike would go on vacation. By the way, Mike Roach has not left us at 24/7 Sports. He just moved on to the national side. Still contributing to the flagship message board at Horns 24/7, where you can get Tommy Yarish's Chris Johnson story on his verbal commitment. We've got that up on the site. The Stampede is absolutely loaded. Horns 24/7 right now loaded with all the recruiting information you could possibly stomach from a massive recruiting weekend. But yeah, that was Mike's big deal. When Mike would go on vacation, Texas was bound to get a commit or two in between the time he left and the time he came back. It's just the way the world, just the way things work.
Yeah. Or if you vacation during the 2 biggest recruiting weekends for Texas, there's also probably going to be a couple guys who pop, right?
That can happen, yeah. Where you want to start, Cam? Because Texas right now in the class of 2024 on the football front, they're up to 7 verbal commitments. I've missed pretty much all of the recent haul, with the exception of Trey Owens and Michael Kern, who were in the fold. You had Freddie Dubose and Santana Wilson last weekend, Christian Clark going into the weekend, the 4-star running back out of the state of Arizona, and then Jarrett Gibson, the big domino to fall, high-end prospect out of the state of Florida. The number 2 running back prospect in the country, according to both our 24/7 Sports in-house rankings and the composite. And then you talk about wanting to add big humans, right? We talked about the big human factor with Sark and Kyle Flood. Nate Kibble out of Atascocita in the greater Houston area. How's 6'2", 324 sound, Cam?
Big.
For an interior offensive lineman.
Big.
So where you want to start, Cam? I'll let you kind of take the lead on this, because I don't know. You brought up recruiting, so I don't know where you want to go with it.
Well, last week we touched on it a little bit with Craig during the Longhorn Notebook, but we didn't spend a lot of time in it. So for those who are listeners to the show, we can just start from the very beginning, right? I believe the first commitment to come in last week was Santana Wilson.
Yes. Yeah. So that was going into the first weekend, and during the first weekend, it was Santana Wilson and then Freddie Dubose.
Yeah. Santana, I believe the son, former NFL star, Adrian Wilson, longtime safety.
Ferocious hitter.
For the Arizona Cardinals. So
ferocious hitter, Adrian Wilson.
Yeah, let's just start with Santana and Freddie and then kind of work from there, I think, right?
Yeah, Santana, by the way, I was thinking about this, and I haven't – it's funny, like, when I unplug, it's funny when I do happen to look at my phone, like, back at the hotel while we're on vacation, and I'll look at my phone, just kind of see what I missed during the day. There was a day last week where I'm like, why in the name of all that is holy is Kristaps Porzingis trending? What could Porzingis have done? And I'm like, oh, the Celtics.
It's your favorite time of the year for NBA, Jeff.
The Celtics did the same thing the Mavericks did. You look at what Kristaps Porzingis is when he's healthy, and you become intoxicated by it. And the Celtics did it, man. They did it. I'm like, no, Boston, no. Don't do it.
See, I like it for Boston because here's the thing with when you guys traded for him, Jeff, Kristaps was going to be the number 2 to Luka, right?
That was the plan. The plan was that
he doesn't have to be number 2 in Boston. He can be number 3.
Well,
he can work off the pick and rolls with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. I agree. When he's healthy, he's one of the best. He's honestly very underrated player in the league. The problem is, will he be healthy And what does Boston do? Do they extend him? Do they sign him to a $100 million plus contract? There's a lot on the table. But I think for Boston, I think it's a good move getting rid of Marcus Smart and taking on Kristaps. And how do we get on Kristaps away from Texas football recruiting?
I don't know. I was just talking about what's trending and what you miss out on.
Twitter. Okay.
Yeah. So Santana Wilson commits. I like the fact that Sark and Terry Joseph and PK, they've got a type that they want. They want 6 foot plus corners. And you look at Santana Wilson, 6 foot 180. You like the NFL bloodlines. Out of Scottsdale, Arizona, Desert Mountain High School. That underrated football state Arizona is. I think with Bijan going early in the first round and some of the other guys they produced, I think we're seeing that state become a little more prominent. So I like that pickup. A top 300 prospect in the country, number 265 overall in the composite. And then Freddie DuBose out of Smithson Valley played initially was a standout at Church Clemens. Only played 1 game last season, tore his ACL in the opener, but came back, had a really good season on the track. And he's a guy, Cam, that I could see really rising in the recruiting rankings, depending on what he looks like as a senior. For, as we know around here, it's a really good Smithson Valley program. Was dominant in that first game against San Antonio Reagan. So Freddie DuBose is a really, really nice prospect, especially considering the way things are trending for Texas with Micah Hudson out of Lake Belton. This is a really, really good pickup for Texas to get Freddie DuBose in the boat.
So with Micah Hudson, right now on 247sports.com, 100% crystal ball at Texas Tech.
And I haven't heard anything that leads me to believe that will change.
But
he was supposed to announce his commitment last night, by the way, and
he did not. He did?
Did not.
Did not. So I feel like with Micah Hudson, as the case with a lot of guys, it's going to be a recruiting battle that until that letter comes in, I won't take too much into it, right? I won't put too much into it because a lot of these guys, even this we saw with Hunter Modden, who decommitted last week. He was one of the first takes for Sark in this 2024 class.
Mm-hmm.
Believe he was recruited as a was he a wideout who played more cornerback?
Yeah, Texas liked him as a corner. Yeah,
and he played more receiver, I think, this last year than cornerback, and I think that's maybe why the decommitment came through. But a lot of these guys, Jeff, they change. I think the big part is just getting that recruiting momentum. Like last year, we saw the Arch Manning, right? The same thing. Texas did not have a big recruiting class in 2023 until Arch committed, which happened Friday a year ago, right? And then the domino started to fall. I don't know if Jarrett Gibson is that domino to fall, but certainly something has occurred the last 2 weeks because Texas went from 1 or 2 commits to 7 in 2 weekends.
Yeah, I just think I think what people need to know at this point about Sark and the staff, they're going to be patient. They're not afraid to get into big recruiting battles. Look, I've seen Texas staffs get themselves in trouble going this route. I've seen really the last 3 staffs do it. And Tom Herman to a far lesser extent than especially Mack at the end or Charlie Strong. Sometimes you just take a guy for the sake of getting a shot in the arm, and it's a guy that you realize you took him way too early, and then by the time it's signing day, he's probably not a guy you'd want in your recruiting class. Tom Herman had far less of those than Charlie Strong did, and Charlie Strong had far less of those than Mack Brown did at the end, but still, Sark's not going to take a guy just to take a guy. Like, honestly, they could have taken the commitment. If they wanted to push for a commitment from Freddie DuBose, they probably could have had him back in February. But they were patient. They let some things play out on the wide receiver board because, honestly, they were recruiting Micah Hudson. They're still recruiting Micah Hudson. Bryant Wesco out of Midlothian, another in-state receiver that they're really high on, is committed to Clemson. So they've kind of really let the board play out. You look at a couple of the other receivers in state, Draylon Miller, who had just a fantastic showing at State 707 over the weekend. Draylon Miller's not a guy that's really on the radar for Texas, but, based on what Hudson Standish has reported, Terry Bussey from Timpson, the number 1 athlete prospect in the country.
Is he the biggest guy outside of Colin Simmons that's on the Texas recruiting board, you think?
Yeah, and I think Texas...
He's certainly the highest ranked outside of Simmons, I believe. Number 15 in the nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and based on what Hudson reported over the weekend, Texas really needed to do a lot of work to get themselves back in the mix with him. Seems like they're back in the mix, so they've at least got a shot. Have they done enough to overtake Texas A&M in that recruitment? To be seen, to be determined, but they've at least got themselves back in the mix. So that's just what Sark and company are going to do. They're going to let the board play out. They're going to really go through the evaluation period in the spring, really let things, kind of let the board kind of work itself out, for lack of a better term. And then by the time they get to this big wave of official visit weekends in June, now they'll have a really good idea of the guys that they want to push for commitments from and what they want their class to look like going into the fall. And keep in mind, it's probably going to be a smaller class than we've seen the last 2 years, because not only have you taken bigger classes, you haven't had that much attrition. This is where attrition's a constant give and take. It's really good that you haven't had a bunch of guys get in the portal. You've still got competition ongoing throughout the roster. The downside of that is you might take a few less recruits than maybe you plan on taking. And it probably means too, Cam, you're going to have to stay on some guys through the fall and hope they don't sign or commit somewhere in the early period. So that way, when you've got a better idea of what your 2024 roster is going to look like after the 23 season, when guys have a chance during the winter to get in the portal and head somewhere else, hopefully you've got a chance to, I hate using the term fallback plan or a fail-safe, but guys that you've been on, now maybe those guys are still available. Now you really have room to make a run at those guys. It's going to be a case with some of these guys, they're going to lose out on some really good prospects just because they might not have room for a guy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that give and take with attrition. But we'll continue to talk about the recruiting class for Texas for 2024 throughout the show. Again, the Longhorns are up to 7 verbal commitments after another just really fantastic weekend. A lot of positivity coming out of the 40 acres from these visits. Jarrett Gibson, 4-star running back out of IMG Academy, is in the boat, as well as Nate Kibble, the big offensive lineman out of Atascocita. You know what we need to do, Ken? We've got to hit a break, but we have to give away a copy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. Give it away 2 today during the show. Trust me. I got that text from Craig Way. I didn't forget about DCTF. So we're going to go right now. You know what, Cam? Since there were 4 different parks that my family and I visited over the weekend at Disney World, we'll go caller number 4. You want to give him the hotline number, Cam?
512-447-3776.
Call the hotline right now. If you're caller 4, you want a copy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Come right back. Shift from recruiting to what's actually going to happen on the gridiron for Texas in 2023. Do a little summer FAQ on the Longhorns in this hour's edition of the Longhorn Notebook. We'll do that when we come back. This is Light the Tower on the Horn, live, local, and digital, on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Went down the hall to grab some water. Didn't think we'd be back from break that quick, but such is life on Light the Tower. A busy Monday on Light the Tower. On the horn, it's Jeff Howe, it's Cameron Parker. In case you missed it, breaking Texas basketball news. You know what, Cam? I'm feeling so good. Give me the breaking news sounder again. In case you missed it, Rodney Terry and Company picked up a high school prospect for the class 2023 to add to the 2023-24 roster. It's Chris Johnson, 4-star combo guard at a Montverde Academy, that prep powerhouse in the state of Florida. Originally, he's from Fort Bend Elkins, a Fort Bend Elkins product. He's from the Houston area, so a local kid. TJ Ford has been a mentor of his. One-time Kansas signee. He is now in the fold with Texas. Sark and Company killing it on the recruiting trail, putting themselves in a position to close on some really, really nice high-end prospects, up to 7 verbal commitments in the class of 2024. Seen David Pierce and Company starting to work the portal, looking for pitching depth. So a lot of good stuff on the recruiting front, but let's go ahead and talk about what's actually going to happen on the field. And we'll do that in this hour's edition of the Longhorn Notebook.
Jeff Howe's Longhorn Notebook.
By the way, Cam, did we get a winner for this hour's copy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football?
Congrats to our third winner on the show, Cindy Bartek, for winning a free copy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football magazine.
We'll give away another one in hour number 2. All right. So, like I said, I wanted to do a Longhorn we'll call this a Longhorn Summer FAQ. I participated in what's going to be, and it might be up. You might be able to get that at Horns 24/7 right now. I don't know, or it might be out this week at some point. But at any rate, Kevin Flaherty, my colleague at 24/7 Sports, and by the way, get over to Horns 24/7 anyway and get all of the recruiting coverage from the weekend. I love our recruiting team. Hudson Standish, Jordan Scruggs, Hank South. They did a phenomenal job covering the 2 official visit weekends. A lot of really good information. So get over to the site and check it out. We've also got, if you're not a member, you want to get some of that recruiting content, we've got an offer that I don't think you can refuse if you're not a Horns 24/7 subscriber. So get over to the site and check it out. At any rate, I digress. I participated in a Q&A with my man Kevin Flaherty. Kevin covers national college football and basketball at 24/7 Sports, and just asked me some Texas questions. And as I was answering them before I headed to the airport to start my vacation, I thought, man, I've been asked these questions a lot. And if you missed the first segment of the show, I compared it with Cam. I said, this is kind of like when you show up for first day of math class in middle school or high school, and the teacher says, I'm going to give you a quiz. It's not for a grade. Just kind of want to see where you're at. Just see what you've retained, where the baseline is. So in an effort to get kind of refocused on Texas football coming off vacation, I'm going to have Cam just read these questions, and your feedback is welcome on the Specs text line, 337-3776. Cam, you have the questions, correct?
Yeah, you ready to go?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right, so the first question is actually a 2-part question.
Love the 2-parters. Sark loves when I ask the 2-parters. I say that in jest. I think he's annoyed by them. But
I think every coach and player loves them.
You think
sarcastically?
So? Yeah. They just really dig it.
So question 1.
I have gotten the answer from Sark, by the way. When I've asked Sark a question, he'll just look at me and goes, "That's a lot, man."
Yeah.
So I have a tendency to do that.
They'll throw shade by they'll say that, and they'll answer the first question, and they'll be like, "What was the second question again?" Sorry. Yeah. It was a long question. What was that again?
Yeah. Sorry, Sark. I know you're not listening, but somebody relay that to the head ball coach. I apologize for my long-winded multi-part questions. But anyway, Cam, go ahead.
What are the expectations for Texas football in its final Big 12 season and what would be considered a success and what would be considered a failure?
I think anything short of making the Big 12 championship game would be not living up to expectations. That's where I've got the bar set. And you can, as I've said, if you want to go as far as to say it's Big 12 championship or bust, I don't really have a problem with that. But if Texas does what TCU did last year, I know I'm splitting hairs here. If Texas has a TCU-like season where they go through the regular season undefeated and lose in the Big 12 championship game, can you call that a failure? Like, well, they didn't win a conference championship, but I think unless something weird happens, Cam, a 12-1 Texas is in the playoff, yes? I don't think there's any question about that.
You would think so.
Well, we'd have to see what the rest of college football looks like, but
because that one loss, you're going to say what? Bama or Oklahoma? But 12-1 means you're the Big 12 champion. I believe that gets you in as one of the top four.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I'll say anything less than making it to Arlington, playing for a Big 12 championship is a disappointment. If you make it there, I think you're at least like, I don't know, it's like a break-even point. It's like, okay, you met expectations. Now can you exceed them, go win a Big 12 championship, and then get in the playoff? So,
considering all the good, positive stuff we've heard about Quinn Ewers, I think the last couple of months, and it's been heating up. There was some scouts talking about how Ewers, his arm movement looks a little bit better. He's taking everything more seriously. We've heard him talk about it in his press conferences. This is going to be a huge year for Quinn Ewers. And if he plays the way that I think he's going to play, that he's going to step up right, he's gotten over that freshman hump. He's realized I need to take the game a little bit more seriously, put more work in. He's practicing harder. He looks good. The offense will be healthy. It should be a really big year, I think, for Ewers in Texas.
Yeah, and there's a question coming up about Quinn Ewers, too. I was thinking about this about Quinn, too. I was watching some Dylan Raiola film over the weekend, like just catching up on some Elite 11 stuff. And by the way, we'll talk about Elite 11 a little bit in our flex segment coming up next hour. But I was watching some Dylan Raiola film, and I'm like, man, and just watching the quarterbacks, I'm like, we killed Quinn for his footwork last year. We're highly critical of it, and rightfully so. Like there were stuff that just didn't look right, didn't look good, and you don't need to be a quarterback evaluator to say, dude, that didn't look right. But man, there's a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of really talented quarterbacks that have just god-awful mechanics coming out of high school. And I don't know if it's like the Patrick Mahomes influence or what, but it's just, or I don't know if it's tempo offenses, if it's the RPO, and just if you look at how college practices are run, how quarterbacks are being taught to not even grip the laces when you're getting the ball out. It's all about getting the ball out quick, be fast.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It just kind of made me go, okay, maybe we were a little too harsh on Quinn. It was right to criticize him. Maybe we were a little too harsh, but I also think, Cam, and I said this on the Longhorn Blitz, we've had a couple of Quinn Ewers episodes this offseason, and I just felt like when you go back to his sophomore year at Southlake and you just look at the injuries he's had and how he's had to adjust to those injuries, the sports hernia chief among them, and how it really, if you look at him throwing as a sophomore to him throwing as a junior, looks just like a totally different guy. The development time he missed during COVID on top of the sports hernia issue, it just looks like to compensate, he overcompensated and got himself into some really bad mechanics. So I'm just wondering, dude, does a healthy Quinn Ewers with a full offseason of understanding Sark's offense and really having himself grounded in this program and grounded in this offense, how much better does just that make Quinn Ewers? Like, forget the work he's putting in and how serious he's taking it, just from the conditions he's working with are seem more conducive to him getting better.
And apparently he's bulked up to 210 pounds. He got his hair cut. I think that was a big factor for a lot of Texas fans who didn't like the mullet. I mean, it just seems all around, kind of came in. He was the man in high school, right? That junior year at Southlake Carroll, he was the number one quarterback. He got his Texas commitment in. Then he went to Ohio State. Maybe went a little bit cocky, right? Maybe thought, I don't have to worry about my footwork as much. I can rely on my talent. And I think he got to Texas, thought that, and it didn't work out. We saw the second half. I mean, he played great in the Alabama game, but when he came back from the injury, he struggled, right? A lot of it was maybe against the defenses he went up against, Oklahoma State, TCU, Iowa State. They got in his head, right? The flyover defense, the 3-3-5. They got in his head. He had some awful second halves in that season, and I think finally, in between the last game and the Colorado game, I thought he played really well in Washington.
Yeah.
In the Alamo Bowl. There was a couple of big time drops, right? Big time drops from the offense, just couldn't get it going against the front line.
Oh my gosh, the one worthy drops where he's running.
That one's going to be replaying in my mind for a while. But I think that was kind of the beginning for Ewers to really, put more into his regiment, his training, his practice. And it seems like throughout the spring, you've heard it from Sark, from everyone on the staff, even from players on the rosters. He's taking this a lot more seriously, and I think that's huge because he's a young kid. And going into last year, he missed, 2 full years of football because he didn't play his senior year, and he didn't play his freshman year at Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at some stuff on the Specs text line, and and I don't mean to single out texters, but should we be concerned that Malik looks sharper than Quinn in the orange-white game? No, because we've seen Quinn Ewers on the field have success at this level. We haven't seen Malik Murphy do anything.
Also look at, who was on the defense when Malik was a quarterback too.
Man, if there's one, I know this much about quarterbacks. I know nobody really knows what they're doing. Like even Bill Walsh, the greatest quarterback minds this sport has ever seen, they've still screwed it up, right? They've still gotten it wrong. But I know enough to know that you don't know for sure what you've got at quarterback. You don't know what you've got at that position until 2 things happen. One, he's actually on the field under the lights when, and I hate this phrase, I hate this expression, but when the bullets are live and there's 11 guys on the other side of the ball trying to make his life a living hell, how does he react to that? You don't know. And then we've seen Texas quarterbacks have initial success, right? We've seen Tyrone Swoops, Gerard Hurd, David Ash, go down the list. Hell, Sam Ellinger hit that wall. Shane Buechele hit that wall. When coaches start to get film on you and they figure out early on in your career where your deficiencies are and the struggles start to happen, can you get over that hump? Can you clear that hurdle? Can you break through that wall? The good ones can. The really good ones can. And the great ones, not only do they break through that wall, they're miles from it by the time their careers are done. So that's kind of the Quinn, and this is kind of topic for a later date. The Quinn Ewers trajectory, it reminds me a lot of the Chris Sims trajectory. Just thinking about how things were then and how they are now. Just that's topic for another day, but that's kind of where I am on Quinn. Is it reminds me a lot of the same things you're saying about Quinn Ewers right now in terms of the ceiling, the pedigree, et cetera, the flashes you've seen. A lot of it reminds me about what we saw from Chris Sims. Really after that 2000 season, that first year where he really got to play a lot, because that 99 season doesn't really count too much.
He was the number 1 quarterback in his class.
In the country, yeah.
The ceiling is there. It's there. It's just, can he tap into it? And so, we can sit here and talk about it, but, I agree with the Specs text line. He's got to do it in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he played excellent against Alabama. What happens if he doesn't get injured in that game? We can just, all come up with theories, but until he does it for a full game, I'm with Texas fans. And I think that week 2 matchup against Alabama at Bryant-Denny will be a huge litmus test to see where is Quinn Ewers at. Has he really progressed? Like, is all this talk about how he's matured and put more work in, is that really the case? And we'll see this year, because if Texas goes 12-1, I think a big part of that is Quinn Ewers, right? And I think going into this next, NFL draft class, you have Drake May, you have Caleb Williams. I think the number 3 quarterback spot is up for grabs. I think that can be Quinn Ewers if he has the year that he should have, because remember what his ceiling was coming out of high school.
If Quinn has the kind of year he's capable of having, and again, topic for another day, does he pass Drake May? So I think Caleb Williams is QB1 for the 24 draft.
Yeah, without a cap.
No question.
He could not play a single snap this year. And
this is Andrew Luck. This is Trevor Lawrence. This is about as sure of a number 1 pick at that position as you're going to find. if Quinn hits his ceiling, I think it's logical, it's feasible that NFL GMs could take a look at him and Drake May side by side and say, you know what, I like that kid a little bit better.
Yeah,
it's all going to be beauty in the eye of the beholder. All right, Cam, we got a couple more of these questions. Let's get to maybe one or two more, and then we'll save the rest for the second hour.
Well, speaking of Quinn Ewers, so much of the buzz surrounding Texas is the development of Quinn. What is a reasonable level of growth for him this year?
Given everything we said, the baseline, that consistency, that baseline he has as a player needs to rise, where maybe you're still getting the wow plays, but you're getting fewer of the good Lord, what was that kind of plays. Like, you remember, as good as he was against Oklahoma, you remember the interception he threw? Where it's he tried to throw it out of bounds and he just chucked it up down the sideline. And it's like, dude.
Kind of floated in the air for a little bit.
Yeah. Throw that in the 10th row. Like, just, that arm he's got, like, and I hate it for Quinn, but like CB texting, by the way, CB, thank you for your contributions. I missed them while I was out. You talk about like the Manning Passing Academy, and you see Quinn just like effortlessly throwing the ball 50, 60 yards down the field. It's like that Jeff George, Kyle Bowler, Jamarcus Russell stuff where it's like, okay, you saw Anthony Richardson, the same thing with his draft. We're like, how does that relate to what you're actually going to do in a game?
Yeah.
I think some of that stuff Quinn gets, not that he does it, but I think on us and Gen Pop, us from the outside looking in, we get caught up in just the arm, just the wow factor with his arm. Well, dude, if you got that arm, use it. Like, if it's a bad play, just eat it. Just throw it in the 10th row. Just chunk it as far as you can. Don't kind of be that Mac Brown line, man. You can't be a little bit pregnant. If you make that decision that the play's not there, then really make sure the play's not there and that nothing bad is going to happen. Live to fight another down. So fewer of the what the heck was that plays. He's still going to have some of them because he's still a developing quarterback. But look, again, the really good ones we've seen come through this program go back to really started with, and even Chris Sims did this. Go look at Chris Sims in 2001 and Chris Sims in 2002. Fewer of the plays that just make you want to drink drain cleaner, and the baseline consistency level got higher. Vince did the same thing. Colt did the same thing. Sam did the same thing. So if Quinn's going to get to anywhere close to his ceiling, he'll show some of that. He'll show that growth this season. Let's get one more, Ken. We got time for one more.
Texas is replacing one of the best running backs the last decade in Bijan Robinson. Is this going to be a by committee approach? And will someone emerge to take the lion's share of the carries at some point?
I think if anybody's going to emerge as the lead dog in the pack, so to say, it's going to be Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against C.J. Baxter or any of those other guys. I just think, Brooks is going to get that opportunity. I think he's earned that opportunity. I think he deserves that opportunity. Yeah, I think Texas could still have a top 30-ish run game, top 35 run game in the country and not have a 1,000-yard back. I think it could be one of those deals. I think you could have a few different backs go for 500-600 yards.
Yeah. Because
Brooks is going to get, and if somebody does have a 1,000-yard season, I think it's Jonathan Brooks. I think by the time you would need to give C.J. Baxter those kind of carries, Cam, I think you would be at the point in the season to where you've already realized, okay, we're going away from Brooks, we're going to C.J. Baxter, but you've given it enough time. You've given Brooks ample opportunity to try to prove himself. But that said, I don't think the running game is going to be the focal point of this offense. I think it's going to be a complementary piece because I think it's going to revolve around Quinn Ewers and this passing game, the talent and the depth you've got at the receiver position. And honestly, I think your game plan on a week-to-week basis, if I'm Steve Sarkisian and I'm drawing it up, I've got to start with, how can I best utilize JT Sanders? That's where your game plan has to start to me, because Bijan was your unicorn last year, right? It's like, okay, how many different ways can I get this guy the ball? How can I maximize his touches? How can I make sure he's making the biggest impact possible on the game? There was that TCU debacle, but that aside, everything else really worked out for Bijan last year. That's what I think you got to do with JT Sanders. I think you got to look at where the matchups are for him. How do you get him involved? Different ways to use him. I think it revolves around JT Sanders. So the running game will always be a part of Sark's offense because Sark wants to play with a physical edge. You want to get the RPO game involved. You want to get your play action game going. All the stuff that makes Sark's offense work hinges on having a running game that's at the very least competent. I just don't think it's going to be the type of featured piece it's been the last 2 years.
Yeah, a lot of times last year, Sark had to rely on Bijan Robinson to carry them to win, right? The Baylor game, Texas does not win that game without Bijan Robinson, and even parts of it, Roshan Johnson just literally willing Texas to win that game. Going into this season, Sark likes to put the ball in his best playmakers, and you can make an argument that the best playmakers are not in the backfield right now. You just mentioned J.T. Sanders, Worthy, Isaiah Nair. There's a lot of guys who are coming back, and if they can stay healthy, the Texas will have a much bigger dynamic than it was last year, where it was like, okay, we have Worthy, who actually, by the way, he's not even 100% the entire year.
Right.
We have Sanders. Our receiver depth has been depleted. The only option right now is to give the ball to number 5. This year.
Did you ever see the first Scary Movie, Cam, from back in the day?
It's been a while.
Or no, this was Scary Movie 2, actually.
Never saw the second.
Where Chris Elliott was he was the butler, and he had a strong hand.
Okay.
Take my strong hand. That's basically X was playing with a strong hand like the last 4 or 5 games of the year.
And usually, if you're playing wide receiver, you want to have both hands healthy. I think that's helpful.
Ideally, that's you'd like to think so. Two hands are better than one.
But going back to the running backs, I think it's going to be a big year for Jonathan Brooks. I know he was not healthy in that Washington game, but also at the same time, we saw Sark kind of divvy up the carries right with Bijan and Roshan last year. I think it's going to be the same way with Baxter, even Jaden Blue. I think Sark's going to take his time to kind of really fill his way out with his running back position, but also that position has a lot of depth and a lot of talent. So I don't think it's going to be a one-man horse type of season for any of those guys.
Sark will be the first to tell you he's always had that workhorse back.
Yeah, he has. Always had someone over 1,000 yards.
But if he doesn't, this will be the year, and I don't think it'll be – if he doesn't, I don't think it's going to be that big of a hindrance on offense. But I do think he's going to give Jonathan Brooks that chance because, like, what you're talking about, Cam, I like to look at your offense in terms of proven commodities, right? And when I'm running down the list of proven commodities – off the top of my head, I can think of 3 guys in the pass game before I get to even thinking about a running back. And really, if you look at A.D. Mitchell has skins on the wall, you can look at your proven commodities and say, however you want to rank them, J.T. Sanders, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, A.D. Mitchell. That's 4 wide receivers / tight ends before you even think about where a running back would rank in terms of the proven commodities on offense. I am interested, though, that Keelan Robinson, Trey Wisner.
I forgot he's even on the roster
multi-purpose back, kind of. If you think about what the H position in the old Tom Herman offense, that hybrid position, that hybrid back, what kind of role is that guy going to play? Because we saw Keelan had. It's hard to have a good, a noteworthy year when the 2 guys in front of you make up the best backfield tandem in the country, and people can dispute that, but go look at the numbers. It's hard to argue against it. I mean, Keelan Robinson really developed into a reliable receiver, which I didn't think he could do to the extent that he did. So how that Keelan Robinson, Trey Wisner, the dynamic of that position, if I can talk right today, how that plays out is really big. All right.
And don't put Keelan Robinson, don't run him in between the tackles like you did against Washington.
Bad idea. So that's a dang coaching mistake. It was not the best way to utilize Keelan Robinson. Better way Sark utilized him last year. The bowl game was not one of them. All right, we'll take a break, come back. Inconceivable. We'll get it. Yeah, and somebody else mentioned on the text line, Savion Red. We didn't mention Savion Red.
Yeah.
So he's part of that hybrid mix too. He could also Savion Red, much better option to run between the tackles and using short yardage or goal line than Keelan Robinson. Agree?
I think there's multiple guys that you could argue that over Keelan Robinson. And no offense to Keelan Robinson, it's just not who his type of running back style is.
If I'm picking a back to get the ball on goal to go, short yardage situation, I'm getting to several guys in that room before deciding to let Keelan tote the rock in that situation. Like you said, Cam, just not conducive to his skill set. I do want Jaden Blue to do something big this year, just so I can see if Craig will say, "You're my boy, Blue," during a Jaden Blue touchdown call. You think
it's probably on the table.
You think he'd do it?
Is there odds on that? Can we look on Caesar Sportsbook to see if there's odds on Craig Way saying that? Or
well, we might get a pot going here at the station, see how many units can move on
some nuggies
on a Craig Way Jaden Blue call. All right, take a break, come back. Inconceivable will get us out of hour number 1 and into hour number 2 here on Let the Tower on the Horn, live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Big news, Cam. I'm starting the Star Wars saga. Starting to run through it. Never seen it before. And when I'm watching it in the best possible way on my home entertainment setup, which was put together. It's the brainchild of Tom McKay and the fine folks at AV Consultations. You can get the home entertainment setup you've always wanted by getting in touch with them right now. 512-255-8678. That's 255-8678. When I made that call, I didn't know how bad I had it until now I see how good I have it. I was started with episode 1, watching it Saturday night on that 75-inch LG TV in my living room, hearing it in crystal clear sound on that Sonos sound system. Tom McKay and AV Consultations, they keep the latest smart TVs and Sonos audio in stock. And what I love about AV Consultations is they'll put together a project that not only makes sense for your budget, it makes sense for the amount of space you have in your house. So maybe you've got a smaller setup, right? That's no problem. Tom McKay can put together something really nice, really professional looking for you in a smaller setting. You want multiple TVs, you want a nice gaming setup. I've seen him do those. If you've been to Pluckers and seen their TV setup, AV Consultations takes care of Pluckers TV setups. Or if you just want to blow it out, if you've got room in your house to do a full tilt home theater experience, you want a screen that's up to 150 inches, AV Consultations can make that happen too. Whatever your needs are, just get in touch with Tom McKay and let he and his team take care of it. 512-255-8678 is the number to call. 255-8678. Call right now and let Tom McKay and Audio Visual Consultations help you realize the home entertainment setup of your dreams. All right, close out hour number 1, get to hour number 2. Cam, what do you got? Cameron Parker, folks, a player in today's presentation with inconceivable.
When you hear Dennis Rodman has a statement, like, where is that at? Like, for you to
That's
like, okay,
that's an immediate red flag. Also, immediate stop down as I need to see what
he said,
what the
right?
worm is saying. Absolutely, 100%.
So we've already heard him, completely knock on MJ, right? He said to MJ what LeBron is the GOAT and all that. It gets to the point where I don't even care what Rodman says about Michael Jordan. Clearly, he's still butthurt about the whole thing for some reason. Well, Jeff, this is not about Michael Jordan. This is about another great NBA player, Larry Bird. Where are you at with Larry Bird?
Larry Legend, very good player. One of the best shooters, one of the best passers, one of the best scorers. And Larry Bird, top 5, top 7, all-time greatest player in league history. By the way, I'm just glad this isn't a Kim Jong-un update. So thankful for that. I'd much rather be discussing Larry Bird than the leader of North Korea.
I was thinking of for some reason Scottie Pippen, not Rodman. Yeah, Rodman's up there too.
Who's very tight with Dennis Rodman, by the way.
I don't know if Rodman said anything like that about Michael Jordan. I know Scottie Pippen has, but Rodman came pretty close to a statement that's close to it because he said if Larry Bird played in this era, I think he'd be in Europe. There's no way. I think the kid from Denver, Nikola Jokic, is better than him. Now, when it's all said and done with Jokic's career, maybe you can make an argument for that. But to think that Larry Bird would be playing in Europe right now is straight up blasphemy.
I'm going to have to go ahead and sort of disagree with him there. Not buying that. Larry Bird playing in Europe. Dude, Larry Bird, you think about Larry Bird might have a more prolonged career playing in the NBA today because his body wouldn't be taking the beating that it took in the 80s.
Yeah, if he had the medical treatment, the access to what they have now back then, I mean, his career was cut pretty short in the 90s because of his back. I mean, he could barely even play in the 1992 Olympics, right? Like
you watch most of those videos, like he's laying down.
Yeah, the treatment he was getting before games and after games. I mean, it was brutal.
Dude, Larry Legend was 6'9". Larry Bird, if Larry Bird played in today's NBA, he could very much. Larry Bird could be a stretch 5.
He could shoot. Lineup. He could play defense. He could pass. He could score from anywhere on the floor. Yeah, I don't think he'd be in Europe. Sorry, Rodman.
Can you imagine if Larry Bird played with a guy? Pick your elite point guard in the NBA. Dude, if Larry Bird played with a dude like Luka, that you could just spread the floor and be an open shooter and get the ball on drive and kick situations. Oh my God, dude, Larry Bird would average like 35 a game. And got the green light to shoot. I'll look it up during the break how many threes a game Larry Bird shot during his career. But can you imagine, like, Larry Bird?
Yeah, it was before the three-point shot.
I'm looking at James Harden on TV right now. Like, if Larry Bird got the green light as much as James Harden gets it, dude, it'd be over. It'd be insane.
And the three-point shot was not what it was then, what it is now.
No.
Speaking of point guards, Jeff, sorry to hear that Chris Paul will not be on the Mavericks for you next year.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. I've already got enough reasons to be, tread lightly as a Mavericks fan on getting my expectations too inflated. A Chris Paul move would have just said, you know what, I don't even care anymore. That would
have been it for you.
I would be counting down the days until Luka left, to be honest with you, if that had happened. Yeah.
Wow. The point guard would drive Luka out of the not Kyrie Irving. Okay.
Let me again during the break. I'll make a list of point guards all time that are better than Chris Paul.
Oh boy,
I bet you I can think of about 5 or 6 guys before I get to Chris Paul.
Getting close to the Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett situation again,
dude. No, this is I don't know anybody, dude. Chris Paul is highly, highly overrated.
Oh my lord. Top 5 point guard of all time is Chris Paul.
Cam, we might have to fight during the break.
We'll go through his stats. We'll go through it. We'll run it down in the break. We'll take a 20-minute break, and we'll just go straight through it.
Okay.
Let's get some crazy stories here. We're getting off track.
All right. Do you have anything else, Cam? Or
not until Dennis Rodman says something else about white basketball. Next thing you know, is like Pete Maravich couldn't play in this era.
Yeah. Or, if Luka played back in the day, like the fact that our business, our industry has become aggregating stuff like this, just that aggravates me more than the Dennis Rodman statement about Larry Bird.
What, the Chris Paul statement?
No, the Dennis Rodman. No, the fact that that became a big story that everybody has to talk about. Oh man, did you hear what Dennis Rodman said about Larry Bird? And the fact that we just wasted time. I'm just buying into everything that's wrong with our industry.
Yeah, we're fully into it. Yeah.
But yes, we do need to have. I do need to set you straight on this Chris Paul argument. All right, last one here. It's a good one. A 300-pound pot-bellied pig in Wisconsin is safe after he escaped his enclosure. And the happy ending could only have been accomplished with an unexpected treat. Kim, what treat do you think lured this pig back to his enclosure?
What do pigs eat? Hay?
Everything if you let them.
Yeah. Grimace's happy birthday meal from McDonald's.
Fruit snacks.
Oh, okay.
The Green Bay Police Department posted the tale in a Facebook post describing the adventures of Albert, who lost his way on the west side of the city. Albert walked out of his enclosure last month after the fence was left open, and officers were quick to spot the animal who needed a helping hand. Police went door to door asking if anyone recognized the pig roaming through the neighborhood, and a neighbor eventually pointed them in the right direction. Luckily, Albert's owner pulled out a bag of sweet and sticky treats, aka fruit snacks, and was able to lead him back home.
Were they Welch's?
Doesn't say if they were Welch's or if they were
Definitely
like
were Welch's.
The generic ones that you buy at like Sam's or Costco, which are fine. Which are fine. I ain't knocking those at all.
I think it sounds like Big Al, aka Albert, is probably a Welch's guy.
He's a 300-pound pot-bellied pig, so I'm sure Albert likes all kinds of fruit snacks. But fruit snacks would definitely lure me home if I was lost and couldn't find my way home or was struggling to get home. All my wife would have to say is, "Hey, I just bought a box of fruit snacks.
Yeah, I'm on my way.
My ass is on the way there." Sweets are going to be my downfall, Cam. When I leave this mortal world, just try to look at, just ask like my wife or whoever's around me, well, what did he eat last? And it's going to be like a cinnamon roll or a donut or fruit snacks or something of that ilk. That's going to be my undoing.
Yeah,
ultimately.
I just went through a crumble cookie run this past week. I'm gonna have to take like a month off from sweets because those things are so good.
Yeah, I ate horribly at Disneyland, by the way.
I mean, you can't really eat healthy there, can you?
My vacation.
Because you're on vacation, you can eat whatever you want.
Eating healthy was doomed the minute I started looking at where we were eating. I'm like, okay, yeah. Speaking of Disney World, did I say Disneyland? I meant Disney World. Speaking of Disney World, I'll get to some vacation breakdown when we come back here on Light the Tower on the Horn, live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Well into hour number 2 on a Monday edition of Light the Tower. Jeff Howe, Cameron Parker. Got a copy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine to give away this hour. Got a Longhorn notebook. Got a Flex update. And, yeah, since Cam wanted it, we'll do a kind of a vacation recap, if you will, of my vacation. Spent 4 days at Disney World last week. So, Cam, Craig did read my updates, my Disney World updates on the air.
Yeah, we did. We got the Mount Kilimanjaro, where you were apparently an a-hole.
Yeah, I was the a-hole because 2 zebras started getting after it, and I laughed because, come on, you see 2 zebras getting after it. That's funny, right? That is not something you see every day. And there were parents around me who were just aghast that a parent would laugh at that. Well, I'm sorry. I find it funny when I see 2 animals getting after it.
Describe the parents that were upset at you, because I bet we can kind of figure out what demographic they fall into.
Nah, dude, do I really need to do that?
Okay.
You can use your imagination.
Yeah. A couple Karens, all right.
But, I'm sure there was a dad in another part of the little vehicle I was in who laughed, just didn't do it as loud as I did.
I mean, at some point, those parents they got to have the birds and the bees talks, right, with their kids. It's part of nature.
Like the parent in front of me, that little boy's probably 5-6 years old. What are those 2 zebras doing? And the mom was like, "They're playing. They're playing."
Boo! What a cop out.
Yeah. And I'm just like, they're not playing. So anyway, yeah. So what else you want to know about the vacation, Cam? Actually, yeah.
So did you hit all 4 parks? Because you got Magic Kingdom,
Animal Kingdom, Epcot, and Hollywood Studios. So hit all 4. I would say if I'm power ranking the parks,
yeah, let's hear it.
Magic Kingdom is number 1 without question. I think had the cool, and for me, the experience is watching my daughter's facial expressions as she goes through everything. And I think Magic Kingdom was the best. We got one of those, you can do different dining experiences, right? So like we ate dinner at the Magic Kingdom on the night we were there. And it's from Beauty and the Beast Castle, like you eat there. And it's like, a really pretty expensive dinner. Actually had a pork chop there that was very good, I might add. And then like the Beast comes out and it's, wearing the costume. And my daughter just thinks this is the greatest thing ever. So I enjoyed things that my daughter was really excited about. Like I texted you and Craig, I think on the first day we were there on Tuesday when we started at Epcot. And we did the Frozen ride, Frozen Ever After. And like my daughter, it was like basically Frozen songs throughout the ride. And dude, she like just her face lit up and like just basically how I would view it if like I walked by Michael Jordan out in Gen Pop. That's how my daughter was, with Olaf leading the way through a sing-along on a boat ride. So it was awesome. So Magic Kingdom, if you're like if you've never been and you're like an old school Disney fan, Magic Kingdom is the place to be. Cinderella's Castle, and my daughter. We've cycled through various Disney movies, Cam, that are her favorite, and right now we're on the Little Mermaid. So doing the Little Mermaid ride, the Disney resort we stayed at the Art of Animation Resort. It's like our part of the resort was like a Little Mermaid themed hotel. The pool was Little Mermaid themed. So my daughters thought that was awesome. So yeah, I would say for me, Magic Kingdom was 1. I would say unpopular take with my wife. I would say Hollywood Studios was 2. I thought Hollywood Studios had the best rides.
Is that where the Star Wars?
That was Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. That thing was so good. Just one of those. And some of these are simulators and they're interactive experiences. They're not like legit roller coasters. But that one, I'm not even a Star Wars fan. I've never seen any of the movies until I started episode 1 on Saturday, and I actually passed out. Like, not because the movie was bad. I was just so tired. I'm going to try to go back this week and watch it, but I'm making it a point to get through the Star Wars saga.
Hold on. You've never seen like any of the originals?
Nope.
Wow.
I'm working my way through them right now.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, Craig said you weren't a big Star Wars fan, but I figured, you at least have seen them. But I don't know. I wouldn't even watch the original. I would watch the originals first, not the prequels. Because I think you'll watch the prequels and it'll kind of like, Because I think you would appreciate the humor in the originals with Harrison Ford versus the
Mhm.
prequels that were a little bit, they were.
So you don't think I should go in chronological order?
No,
You think
I
I should
don't think
go in
so.
order of release?
Yeah, I think so. I think you watch, and Specs Text Line, correct me, I think you start out with New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, which I think is considered probably the best one, and then Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Because you can't go wrong with Harrison Ford, man. I was watching Raiders of the Lost Ark yesterday. That movie still holds up. And the graphics in that movie are better than the new Flash movie somehow.
What's your favorite Indiana Jones movie?
Probably Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay. I'm a Sean Connery guy, so I like
Well, all
I like
three
the
are
Last
good, right?
Crusade. Yeah.
Just like the Star Wars originals. So I think you start out with New Hope. But that's just my opinion.
Somebody chimed in on Specs text line, kind of trashy. I can only imagine a grown man giggling about animals having sex.
Yeah,
well,
disgusting, Jeff.
I never said I was socially or emotionally mature, so there is that. Never professed to be that, but at any rate. Also, CB did remind me of something I did text you and Craig about the Magic Kingdom. For all the positives, the only drawback, I'm
Small World.
99% sure Walt Disney was on an acid trip when he came up with the concept of It's a Small World. Dude, and of course I was like, oh yeah, it's a small world, and I get it. Oh, my wife was like, okay, I get it. They're singing It's a Small World after all in different languages and it's different cultures. And I'm like, of course, the first any kind of Latino / Hispanic little puppet I see, it's a kid on a donkey wearing a poncho and a sombrero. I'm like, oh, of course, had to throw that in there. Yeah, let's just stereotype it all the way around. So yeah, I was like, man, if that could be seriously. I texted you guys this. I don't know if you said this on the air. That you could be tried for a war crime for using that as a form of torture. Like one time was enough for It's a Small World for me. But Hollywood Studios, not only do they have the Star Wars, right? Which the Star Wars, like you go to the Star Wars part, there's like a Star Wars portion of that park. And it's like they have Star Wars themed drinks. Like my wife got a Star Wars themed cold brew that had Cocoa Puffs in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. The Coke bottles there were shaped like the Death Star, made to look like the Death Star.
So like very
they were spherical,
yeah,
if you will.
Spherical.
So I just thought it was awesome. I thought it was great. Also did the Tower of Terror ride, the Hollywood Hotel Tower of Terror. My 5-year-old did it and didn't complain. And the drops, like it's the drop. You're going up and down, and like the G forces are lifting you off your seat because there's no seat belt. You just have the lap bar. That was a fun ride. Not gonna lie, my daughter and I enjoyed the Frozen sing along that we went to, and we're like, we need to find something that's in the air conditioning, so we did that. That's what I liked. That's one of the
Were
best.
you singing along?
Oh yeah. Because come on, Cam, when you have kids, you'll understand there will be Disney movies that you'll be able to pretty much recite the dialogue start to finish. You'll know the critical markers in the movie. Moana and Frozen are those movies for me. Starting to get there with Rapunzel, getting reacquainted with the Little Mermaid. So it's just life as a dad.
Where was Epcot in your rankings? At 3 or 4?
I would say Epcot was 3.
Okay.
Solid. If you're Epcot is more.
Is that more of like? So I went to Disney World once, and it was during COVID, and it was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more of like, hey, we're gonna take a day and just kind of relax and enjoy some food and beer? It's not. It's one day you take away on the side, right? You separately go.
Yeah.
Versus because we kind of hit Magic Kingdom and back and forth with Hollywood Studios and stuff.
Stoner said Rock and Roller Coaster. No, Stoner, the Rock and Roller Coaster featuring Aerosmith was actually closed the day that we went to Hollywood Studios. It was open though the day after we went. So Epcot was fine. Epcot is more of that's the day if you need a break, like if you're an adult and you just like, okay, I need a break.
A drink,
I don't
need
need a bunch of rides. Just need a beer, need some, try a bunch of different food. That's your Epcot day. Epcot is your day of just kind of recharge a little bit. It's kind of throttle down, if you will. And then fourth, I would say Animal Kingdom, and not, there were a couple highlights. I enjoyed the safari.
The zebras.
The Avatar ride was freaking awesome. That was pretty cool. But And it's probably because we did the lightning pass for the first three, really for Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. We did the lightning pass where you don't really have to wait in the big long line.
Yeah.
Like if it's I told you and Craig this, we did the lightning pass for Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. We were, from the time we got in line to the time we got off the ride, in and out in 25 minutes, 30 minutes.
Love that. Love that.
By the time we got back to the front and saw the wait, standby line was a 3-hour wait.
That's what it was for Avatar when I went. It was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Forget that.
We caught Avatar. We didn't lightning pass that one. We decided it got down to, I think, 45 minutes. And we're like, okay, now's when we need to go.
Yeah.
But by the time we got there, because my wife had an app that was tracking wait times, by the time we got over there, it was, I think, 90 minutes. So we waited in the line for about an hour and a half to do the Avatar ride. But it was worth it. It was good. I just didn't think, Animal Kingdom was okay. It's kind of like if you've been to one zoo, you've been to them all.
Mm-hmm.
So not really a knock on it, just kind of, and maybe because we did that one the last day we were there, and by the time we were done with Animal Kingdom, we're like,
ready to go.
Just ready to go get in the pool and chill before we got to be up at 3 in the morning to 4 or 4 in the morning, whatever it was, to go to the airport. So those were the highlights. Again, overall, pretty enjoyable experience. My wife is ready to go back. My daughter's ready to go back. I'm not chomping at the bit to get back.
Chomping or champing?
Don't start, Cam. Just it's whatever. It's whatever you want it to be. But so there it is. I'll take your text on that on Specs text line 337-3776. Cam, let's get to this Chris Paul debate real quick.
Oh boy.
I want you to pull. Did you pull up Chris Paul's stats during the break?
Doing it right now.
Okay. Use whatever criteria that you want to use. I maintain Chris Paul's not a top 5 point guard of all time. Depending on how you want to label, what positions you want to label Steph Curry and Jerry West, who are combo guards. If you look at their basketball reference page, their primary position is listed as point guard. But some would not consider them true point guards. Okay? So let's take Steph Curry and Jerry West. Unquestionably, we would say both guys better than Chris Paul. Let's just take them and put them off to the side. I've got 5 point guards. I would say unquestionably I would take ahead of Chris Paul. You ready?
Yeah.
Magic Johnson.
Agreed.
Isaiah Thomas.
Agreed.
John Stockton.
I'll push back on that.
Oscar Robertson.
Agreed.
Steve Nash.
Okay. I don't think anyone's wrong there. I would argue. Now I know Stockton went to the NBA Finals twice, but if your argument was Chris Paul never could get over the hump, well, neither could John Stockton.
Yeah,
and neither could Steve Nash. Really.
Steve Nash. I'll give you that. I think there's a healthy debate to be had between Steve Nash and Chris Paul. The fact that Nash was a back-to-back MVP, one of those being a unanimous MVP, that to me gives Steve Nash the edge. But other than that, there is a healthy debate to make. If you're going to say, well, Chris Paul, at least Chris Paul got to a finals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can say Chris Paul, much better defensive player than Steve Nash. I would never, as a Mavericks fan, I could not say that with a straight face. I could not make that argument and feel good about myself.
17-year career for Chris Paul. 12 All-Stars, 4-time All-NBA first team, 5-time second team, 2-time third team, 7-time NBA All-Defensive first team, been to the finals, was the Rookie of the Year, led the league in assists 5 times, led the league in steals 6 times. He's always, whenever he's on a team, for me, he always makes that team better, right? And my thing with Chris Paul is that, yeah, he's never won a ring, but when has he been on a team when you feel like that team wasn't a contender, right? The Houston teams he was on, right? Rockets fans who are listening. He had that injury in, was it Game 7 in 2017 or 2018?
Mm-hmm.
If he stays healthy, they might beat the Warriors, right? That Rockets team with him and James Harden.
I think they would have.
They went.
If Chris Paul's healthy, I think they beat the Warriors.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Chris Paul is that if you can go through and say, well, if he was healthy, because if he was healthy for the final series against the Bucks, they might win that NBA Finals. If he was healthy for the Clippers a couple times, they had a really good team. From his career, he's had one of the most consistent careers of all time, and that's why I would have him as top 5. Now, where he fits in that top 5, I believe Isaiah Thomas, as much as he was an awful front office guy and maybe an awful human being, I think he's still the number 1 true point guard. I would argue Chris Paul's 2 or 3.
Yeah, Chris Paul was hurt in Game 6, didn't play in Game 7, and that's the game where the Rockets missed
Game 6.
43 3-pointers.
Started 0 for 17, 0 for 16, something stupid.
Insane. I would say this about Chris Paul. This is my what if with Chris Paul. It's not so much the Game 6 injury. My what if with Chris Paul is what if that trade to the Lakers
happens
doesn't get vetoed by David Stern in the league. Like, Chris Paul might not have the numbers that he has, but I guarantee you Chris Paul playing with Kobe, he's got at least a finals appearance long before he had one. And honestly, man, Chris Paul at that point probably has a ring. You put prime Kobe with coming into his prime Chris Paul, we probably view Chris Paul very differently if that trade to the Lakers goes through, and if he has a championship.
Yeah, and the Lakers, because that next year, because remember, they made the trade. David Stern vetoes it. Shout out David Stern. Rest in peace. Then they go out and they get Steve Nash and Dwight Howard, which ended up being in 2 awful moves. But that team that year, they would have had Kobe Bryant and they would have had Paul Gasol.
Mm-hmm.
They're a contender because the team that came out of the West in the 2011 season was that was Dallas, right? And Dallas was a 60 in the playoffs and ended up just getting hot. So you could argue, Chris Paul in his prime, if he's healthy, you're right. Lakers, Chris Paul's career could look a lot differently, especially playing alongside Kobe Bryant.
It would have rejuvenated the Lakers because you watch by the end of that Mavericks series, dude, the Lakers were toast. They were done.
Yeah.
It was that old dog that you realize, and I had to make that decision earlier this year. It's that old dog that's been a great dog, but then you realize this is no way to live. I just need to do the right thing here. The Lakers need to be put out of their misery by that point. Maybe Chris Paul gives them a shot in the arm. I don't know, but I think Stoner or somebody said on the Specs text, and I think we've had it for a couple of people. Chris Paul, and you just said it, Cam. Chris Paul's entire career is if.
Yeah, it is.
It's a
but
giant series of ifs.
You can't argue against his numbers though. And for
Can't
17
argue against
years,
the numbers. But I would take those 5 point guards for sure that I mentioned: Magic, Isaiah, John Stockton, Oscar Robertson, Steve Nash, in no particular order. I would take any of those 5 over Chris Paul. And then if you're going to say you want to consider Steph Curry and Jerry West as point guards, Chris Paul is at best, to me, the 8th best point guard. So he's barely sneaking into the top 10.
Yeah. In terms of a true point guard, I wouldn't have West or Steph Curry as a true point guard. I think Steph's more of a combo guard.
Yeah, they're both combo guards.
Jerry West, he's kind of in that spot with like LeBron James, where it's like if you had to list him, like you probably put him as a forward, but really he could play all 5 spots on the floor.
For sure. All right, we'll take a break, come back, we've got a flex update, and we've got our second hour Longhorn Notebook. We'll finish that summer Q&A that we're working on, and re-rack the good news Rodney Terry and company got this morning. We'll do that when we come back on Light the Tower on the Horn, live, local, and digital, on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. Rolling along, Monday edition of Light the Tower on the Horn. Jeff Howe, Cameron Parker. Taking your feedback on the Specs text line 337-3776. We'll finish up that Longhorn Summer FAQ coming up here in the Longhorn Notebook. Also got a Flex update to get to. Got to re-rack some Texas basketball news. And speaking of that Flex update, let's get to it right now.
Flex ATX for the best high school sports coverage. Listen to the Horn and go to FLXATX.com. Flex 30 is brought to you by Brain Vault. Brain Vault is a revolutionary and patented mouthguard that has been proven to help reduce the risk of concussion. Visit BrainVault.com and join the movement.
All right, got a couple of things to get to. Cam, what you got?
Congrats to the Round Rock Dragons winning the 7-on-7 state championship. It's their first time since 2019 making it out to College Station, and Mason Cochran delivered.
Central Texas and the greater Austin area has had a really good run of success.
Yeah. Division One title, by the way.
Lake Travis has won it. And Stony Point won it many years ago. So typically you'll get a couple of Austin area teams that make it pretty far. So shout out to the Dragons. Good job with them. Mason Cochran, Leonard Moore on defense, the Notre Dame commit was really good anchoring that secondary. So shout out to the Dragons, the 7-on-7 state champions. All right, we're gonna stick with football here. This clip we're gonna hear is courtesy of my colleague at 24/7 Sports, Josh Pate. The Late Kick with Josh Pate. If you don't watch it on YouTube, don't subscribe to the podcast. You need to get your college football fix. Josh Pate was talking about, because he was out at the Elite 11 with some of our 24/7 Sports staff. He picked not who he thought was the best, but his favorite quarterback from the Elite 11. It's a local prospect, and I think if you're a Hutto Hippo fan, if you're a Texas Tech fan, I think you'd be really excited about what my man Josh Pate has to say.
And it's easy for a coach to say, oh man, you're going to jump right into this nickel spot, and you're
That was Trent.
Let's try that again, Jeff. Let's try that again, shall we?
The quarterback that I liked the most was a kid by the name of Will Hammond, who is committed to Texas Tech, and he was not favored by anyone to win the MVP nor the Alpha Dog Award. But you know what? At Pate State, we have our own awards. And so if we want to name the Pate State Freight of the Week, it was Will Hammond. If there's one kid who talked like he was 45 years old with a family and a reasonable mortgage and 2 cars in the driveway and a dog to take care of, it's Will Hammond. Just sounds like he's lived a life. He is also physically pretty advanced. Joey McGuire and company out there in Lubbock, they ought to look very, very much forward to the day that guy begins starting games for them at quarterback.
Very, very strong words from my man Josh Pate about Will Hammond.
Will came on the Flex show a few weeks ago. Now, he's not 45 years old, but he's a very mature individual for a guy who's, 17, 18 years old, and he's got scary good arm talent. So this is a take that, if you've been following Huddle football and been in the Centex area, it's not a surprising take, Jeff, to be honest with you. He's a guy that, I think he has, higher upside than even Austin Novosad at times.
Really? Wow. A hot take by one Cameron Parker.
And Austin's a great quarterback. But I think Will Hammond has that potential from what we've seen during his time 7-on-7s, during his time at camps, especially from Elite 11. I mean, if that's a pretty big take coming from Josh Pate as well.
There you have it. So shout out to Will Hammond for a noteworthy performance out at the Elite 11. All right, let's get to this hour's edition of the Longhorn Notebook.
Jeff Howe's Longhorn Notebook.
Re-rack the breaking Texas basketball news, the big Texas basketball news of the day. Chris Johnson, 4-star combo guard at a Montverde Academy in Florida, national prep powerhouse. Dylan Mitchell finished his high school career there. Marcus Carr finished his high school career there. So did Chris Johnson. Spent his first 3 years at Fort Bend Elkins, then went to Montverde. Kansas signing initially, got out of his letter of intent with the Jayhawks earlier this month, and now he has committed to Rodney Terry and the Texas Longhorns, number 73 overall in our national rankings at 24/7 Sports for the class of 2023. Cam and I, we were talking about it during the show earlier. Cam, just to reset, this is a guy that I think has a chance to grow with Kendall Weaver and be a guy that can really solidify your backcourt for the 2024-25 season, in theory, once Max Asmus and Tyrese Hunter are no longer on campus.
Yeah, this is the move for Rodney Terry to at least, provide some sort of insurance in debt for the 2025 seasons because he's the only freshman who's going to have a scholarship on this basketball team going forward. It's a lot of super seniors, seniors, and upperclassmen. I mean, Kendall Weaver's a sophomore, but there's no guarantee that going into next year, Rodney Terry will have a returning guard. And for a sport that is dominated by guards right now, especially combo guards, this is a good move for Rodney Terry because, obviously he can attack the portal, but it would be nice to have someone to come in who's been developed and has the experience and knows the staff, knows the offense very well going into his second season. So this is not much more of a move for this year as it is for 2 years down the road, Jeff.
Like we said, TJ Ford has been a really big mentor to Chris Johnson throughout his basketball career. So the connection with the Texas staff and the Texas program was there. And once he got out of that letter of intent with Kansas, Texas was on him. And I know Washington and Arkansas were in the mix, but I don't think it was ever really a question of if, but when Chris Johnson was going to pull the trigger and make it known that Texas was going to be his choice. So, like you said, Cam, really big get for Rodney Terry. Your backcourt of the future, as much as you can have a backcourt of the future in college basketball today, because you got Asmus and Hunter with skins on the wall, and now you bring in Chris Johnson along with Kendall Weaver. Let your guy moving up a level like Kendall Weaver is after a really good freshman year at UTA, was the WAC freshman of the year, and then a true freshman coming from the high school ranks. Just kind of let those guys get their feet wet and then be ready to take off in year 2. All right, Cam. Oh, do you have something else to add on?
Yeah,
on
before we get to the FAQ, Kylie McDaniel from ESPN released his MLB mock draft. Draft coming out July 9th. Texas has 2 signees that I think are possible first-round draft picks. Nick Saunders out of Waco University and Travis Sikora out of Round Rock. This mock draft does not have those 2 guys going in the first 40 picks. Now, it's a mock draft. Does not mean it's true, but I think for those 2 kids, a lot depends on if they come to Texas based on where they're drafted and that signing bonus, that guaranteed money. So those are 2 guys that I think would make an immediate impact as a freshman. Sanders probably the number 2 catcher behind Blake Mitchell out of Sinton, who's going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And if not, he's going to LSU. And Sikora, he's already thrown 100 miles an hour as a high school kid. So July 9th, I believe, is the MLB draft. A lot of, with the World Series, there's a lot of good pitching right now. So that's kind of a little bit of recency bias for a lot of MLB guys. We'll see what actually happens on draft day. But 2 guys that, Texas and Coach Pierce will have their eyes on come draft night.
A little less than 2 weeks. Man, I've not counted on either one of those kids making it to campus.
No.
If you get one of those guys, then that's a win, dude. If you get both, and now you're talking about, I know they're freshmen, but those are 2 pieces that they can help you. Those are the kind of pieces that help you get to Omaha.
Yeah, and I think, because you're watching, Waldrop and the kid from Rhett Lauder and all these guys pitch, Spalskins, obviously it's in the back of your mind, it's more fresh, so you're going to probably elevate them a little bit higher in the MLB draft. But, once you get 1 or 2 weeks for the MLB front offices to actually sit down and think about what they want to do, I wouldn't be surprised if closer to draft night you end up seeing Travis Sikora back up in the first round, because talking to the scouts who would go to the Round Rock games, they were like probably mid-20s is where I'll end up. But, you never know. We'll see. You
can also have a deal where we've seen teams work their draft like this with the bonus pool money.
Yeah.
To where you can take a junior or a senior, definitely, but a junior that is going to sign. That they don't want to go back to college. You can sign them under slot, save some of that slot money, and take a kid like a Nick Saunders or a Travis Sikora. Maybe take them if you got a sandwich pick or a pick early in the second round. Take them, and then now you can sign them way over slot, and it still makes sense for you.
Yeah, which obviously could definitely happen depending on, it's about the money, I think.
Yeah. All right, Cam, let's go ahead and wrap up this summer football FAQ.
All right. So we've touched on the year's expectations, Quinn Ewers, the running back room. Now, defensively, what needs to happen for Texas to take a major step forward in any young players who you think could factor into that next step, Jeff?
I think overall, you got to make more splash plays. Your havoc plays have to increase. And what I mean by havoc plays, if havoc rate is one of those advanced statistics that Bill Connolly and folks of that ilk track, and I love it because it gives you a better idea of what kind of impact plays your defense is making, and that's tackles for loss, which includes sacks, passes defensed, which includes interceptions, And forced fumbles are also factored into your havoc plays because it's not necessarily fumble recoveries. It's how often are you getting around the ball and making an impact when you're there. Texas just didn't make enough of those last year. We saw the numbers on defense improve, but I just think the interceptions and not necessarily the sacks. You'd like the sack numbers to go up, but I think forced fumbles, interceptions, stopping drives, ending drives early, getting your offense in good field position. Because we've seen, there's no reason why this offense shouldn't be a really good sudden change offense with the kind of firepower you've got potentially. They just need more sudden change opportunities. We see more often than not in Sark's first 2 years, your sudden change opportunities have come off special teams. Now, whether it's a block punt, a big return, block field goal, whatever it is, we've seen more of those sudden change opportunities come off special teams. I think more of those just need to come off defense, Cam. I'm not necessarily saying you need to be Todd Orlando's 2017 defense and lead the country in defensive touchdowns. But you got to get more interceptions, more forced fumbles, more sacks, and get offenses behind the chains. You want to become a better third down defense, a better situational defense. Get teams off schedule. Get them into third and long and take your chances there. So that's what I need to see from this defense. As far as young guys, I think it's going to be the linebackers. Leonga Lafau and/or Anthony Hill, especially Anthony Hill's a situational pass rusher. Really like him. And I think at the corner position too, Terrence Brooks is a guy that we saw play a lot late last year. If he can hold down that field corner spot, because you know what you got at boundary corner with Ryan Watts. If Terrence Brooks can be the guy at field corner, that just makes you so much more flexible with the rest of your defense. It really it allowed Jalen Catalon to settle into a role. You can keep Jede Barron at that nickel position, at that star position. You can use Gavin Holmes more liberally. It just helps out your defense on the back end tremendously if you find a piece that you can plug in and rely on down to down at field corner. Terrence Brooks is going to go into camp with the best shot to be that guy.
Question number 5. Who's an off-the-radar player or players who could emerge to play an important role this season?
I think I mentioned this in the Q&A with Kevin. It's hard at Texas to be very much off the radar just because of when you're doing it right in recruiting, a lot of these guys are going to come in with hype. I think it's going to be somebody at that edge, those edge positions. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about – I've looked at it from the standpoint of maybe an opponent by opponent approach to the edge position opposite of Barron Sorrell, whether it's, you're playing a team that's more of a balanced offense. Mm-hmm. You might see more Justice Finkley and Jamon Tapp if it's a team that plays like a Kansas State and wants to play with heavier personnel. Maybe that's a week where you see more Dre Bledsoe out there, and definitely more of Finkley and Tapp. If it's a team where like a Texas Tech that's going to throw the ball a bunch and spread you out, that's probably a week where maybe Ethan Burke and or Colton Vossick get more snaps. It's not out of the question though it's not out of the question though, Cam, that one of those guys just steps up and takes hold of that position. It would be coming out of the blue for me if that happened. So I think if it's going to be somebody stepping up, kind of a dark horse type guy on defense, I think it's going to be one of those edge guys. If you want to take it over to offense and look at a dark horse type guy, again, it's hard to call DJ Campbell or Nato Ameazulu a dark horse, but said this before I left on vacation. You're bringing back all starting 5 on the offensive line. That's not necessarily a given that those are going to be your starting 5 wire to wire in 2023. I just think your depth is that good up front that you just might have some younger guys pass some more experienced guys. So I would say it's probably going to be one of those edge guys. And if you want to get technical, David Benda and Keaton Crawford are really good prospects for that. So we just haven't seen those guys do it on defense on anywhere close to resembling a consistent basis. Keaton Crawford's done it on special teams. David Benda's been a backup. Those two guys kind of fit that mold of dark horse guys that you think could emerge and be players of consequence. Kind of take that Anthony Cook path.
Next one for you, Jeff. What's the general feeling about Steve Sarkisian and the job he's done / is doing at Texas heading into his 3rd season?
I think I'll speak for the Texas fans that I interact with on the flagship message board at Horns 24/7 and on the Specs text line. I think people love Sark as a recruiter. They love Sark as a personality, Sark as a motivator, Sark as a face of the program. in general, like Sark's offense, I think the big question is Sark the kind of coach that can work a game to give you an advantage in a tight game? Again, Cam, 4-10 in games decided by 8 points or less. That's Texas' record under Sark in those games. Can he give you the kind of edge you need to get over the hump in those close games you're inevitably going to play in this league? That's what I think a lot of people either question or just don't. They just believe that's where Sark comes up short.
And last one for you. We talked about recruiting on this show already. We know how Sark's done a great job recruiting, especially at a high level. It feels like there's fewer roster holes than perhaps in the last few years, especially coming off of the high-rated classes that even Tom Herman and Charlie Strong pulled together. Still a lot less roster holes going into this year. But is there a position that Texas needs to recruit at a higher level heading into the SEC?
It need to continue to recruit interior defensive line at a high level, because you're about to run into a couple years where Alfred Collins, Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Vernon Broughton, all these guys are about to be gone. So you got to make sure you're replenishing that pipeline. I think defensive line, period, is where it is. We talked about edge. I can't say you, and nobody can say they've recruited bad at edge. We just don't know what's there really. So I would say edge, interior defensive line, basically your defensive front as a whole, and then I think corner. Again, not that they haven't recruited bad at corner. I just think the skill talent in the SEC continues to get better and better. You better make sure you got guys that can lock down and man coverage. Nick Saban's having a hard time finding guys right now that can consistently do that. So if Nick Saban's having a hard time finding those guys, everybody should be having a hard time finding those guys. Recruiting at corner specifically, along with defensive front in that league, those two things are going to be paramount. In addition to continuing to doing what you're doing on the offensive line, because as much speed and talent is in that league, the SEC always has been, always will be a line of scrimmage league. That's where Texas needs to continue to improve.
There's two for sure positions that needed to be addressed going into the SEC, and it's both the offensive line and defensive line. It feels like the O-line's been addressed. D-line, it's going to be a big year. There's a lot of promise, potential, but I'm going to wait and see mode on the D-line, Jeff. Offensive line, I think it's going to be a great year for the O-line.
Yeah, especially given the defensive line, especially given losing Colburn and Ojimo, some guys that played a lot of really productive snaps for you. And the depth really made that interior D-line group special last year. Are they going to have that kind of depth? Can they get it from Broughton and Collins or an Aaron Bryant? Somebody like that further along down the depth chart. All right, we're up against it. Got to take a break. Come back. We'll close out this edition of Light the Tower on the Horn. Oh, by the way, got to give away a copy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. Since Texas won 8 games last year, we'll take caller number 8 on the hotline. What's the hotline number, Cam?
512-447-3776.
Caller number 8, you get a copy of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Be back to wrap up this edition of Light the Tower on the Horn, live, local, and digital, on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. All right. One last reminder today from me. Get over to Horns 24/7. We got the Chris Johnson basketball news, all kinds of recruiting stuff from the weekend. Got contributions from not just our recruiting staff, Hudson Standish, Jordan Scruggs, Hank South, also Mike Roach and Steve Wiltfong from a regional and national perspective. All that's over at Horns 24/7, so get over there and check it out. Also, you can get the stuff Cam and I talked about in that vein on the podcast page at hornfm.com if you missed any of the show. Stay tuned. Chad is coming up next for The Vacation in Craigway. For Cameron Parker, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back tomorrow to light the tower on the Horn, live, local, and digital, on the Horn app and at hornfm.com.
Ah, you damn right. Hope everybody's having a good Monday. Oh, it's going to be another one of those weeks. 104, 5, 6, whatever it's going to be for the high. We hope you are finding a way to keep it cool. Hope everybody had a nice weekend. Vacations all over the place in the building for us this week. If you listen to Bucky and Aaron, you know Bucky's off this week. If you listen to Light the Tower just now, finishing up, you heard Jeff tell you that Craig starts his vacation this week. And for us, Isaiah Collier and his lovely wife are on their honeymoon this week. We hope they're having a great time. So it's Chad and Zay without the Zay. I'm Chad Hastings. Joining me for a lot of this week is the hard-working man himself. You've heard him on this show before. He is Cameron Parker. What's up, Cam?
Chad, I'm glad I can finally return the favor, because usually you're filling in for Craig or Jeff. Hour 2 Light the Tower, now I get to fill in for Zay. So
see, now you know why I said yes.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Now you know why I said yes. No, there's a lot of favors that get done in this regard, and I was glad to do it for them, and I appreciate you being willing to jump in. The vacations are important. The time off is important. Got to recharge a little bit and recuperate and all that good stuff. But there's still a lot to get into. This is a week, and we pointed this out last week. Once the bosses were able to get us Monday and Tuesday off next week, having this week off is fairly brilliant. So to the three guys I've already mentioned and to Mike Harge from the afternoon show, well played, gentlemen. Well played. Because now they get 7 straight shows off. And for Craig, it's more than that, but he was already going to have it off. For those other 3 guys, well orchestrated and using the holiday to your advantage. And then once the bosses did what they did, it just turned into a bonus. So well played on all parts there.
And last week we had Patrick out on his vacation. I mean, he's probably the hardest working man in this building. So when is the Chad Hastings vacation?
I am taking there's a week in July. Then there's going to be one day where my wife and I have to go to a it's like a weekend get together for a spreading of ashes kind of a thing. So it's not the official memorial, but it's kind of a memorial. So we got to do that very end of July, and then I'm going to take 4 more days in August. So July and August, that's
your time. Yeah.
That's coming up. So that we got that going on. And how about you? You've got stuff going on, or you got something coming up?
Yeah, late July,
That's
early
right.
August is my vacation time.
Gotcha. We got a lot going on. There's a lot of recruiting stuff that we'll be getting to today. Also, been able to pack it in with some guests. Our normal visit with Joe Cook of Inside Texas coming up at 1. How about this? World's Strongest Man, Mark Henry, and recent Viper dad, in case you don't know. He is now the father he's still the father of Jacob Henry, but now Jacob Henry is going to be at Vandergrift instead of Lake Travis. So we'll talk to Mark about getting used to that. Also, just catch up with Mark on a couple things. I know he's excited about football coming up, big Longhorn fan, and we'll be getting into a little bit more of that. So that's around 1:30 or so, kind of a special flex segment, if you will, with Mark Henry. And then I wanted to get some of the other guys from other shows on throughout the week to kind of show them off, the ones that are not on vacation this week, and that would include Aaron Hogan. So 2:05 today, want to get Aaron's thoughts on not only College World Series coming down to 1 game tonight, but I want to get his thoughts on Major League Baseball. Aaron is one of my favorite baseball fans that I get to talk to from time to time, and Aaron has never talked too much hardball in his opinion. So we'll talk some baseball and maybe a little football as well with Aaron at 2:05. Plus, as I mentioned, Cameron Parker is here to help shoulder a huge amount of the load, I'm sure, and make this show sound pretty smart. And you can also make the show sound smart or dumb or silly or whatever you want on the Specs text line 337-3776. Before we get into some Longhorn stuff, let's just give a local team their due. We'll be telling you more about this as the week goes on, but kids, the Round Rock Dragons went to College Station over the weekend, didn't lose a game, and won 7-on-7. Well done, gentlemen. Well done. I was already kind of digging on Mason Cochran and the talent they had. We've talked about how tough and nasty they are, Cam, but now that is an interesting indicator to me. That is, now correct me if I'm wrong, Round Rock is in the district with Vandergrift and the rest, correct?
Yes.
Man, if I'm Coach Sanders at Vandergrift, obviously they're a big story because they're trying to, get back to the state championship game, but they also lose their quarterback and they're going to be changing some other things up. Now, in some ways, they might be better as well, but not that they weren't on his radar, but for Round Rock to do that, they are kind of the opposite for me of what DeSoto did last year. I went and watched DeSoto win the 7-on-7, and I thought, man, if they can block and tackle, they might win state. And they did. But it's the opposite. But it's the opposite for Round Rock. I know they're tough. I know they can block and tackle. They just do it a little bit differently. To hear that Mason Cochran and those guys went over there and won 7-on-7, and there's some defensive scores in there. I get it. When we go over what the actual scores were, a lot of those games were close. Some were low scoring. But apparently Mason put on a show, even had a big interception in the championship game. So congrats to Round Rock. We'll be talking about it throughout the week, but I did want to mention it here at the beginning.
Yeah, Dragons are a team that I have circled because you mentioned it with all the quarterbacks that departed in this area. Austin Novosad is off to Oregon. Braden Buchanan's off to Waco to play baseball. And even the bigger programs, the Lake Travis, the Westlakes, Vandergriffs, like there's all kind of question marks about the quarterback position right now. I know the Vipers added a quarterback from, I believe, was New Braunfels coming in, him and his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Who are expected to be great players. Keep an eye on the Flex ATX watch list coming out. They may or may not be on it. We'll see about that. But it feels like Round Rock and Hutto both have quarterbacks. We talked about Will Hammond, who's Texas Tech commit.
Yep.
And Mason Cochran are two of the returning seniors going into the Centex area. And I think that's, that'll be important, I think, for this season in a really loaded Centex area. But a lot of questions at quarterback around the area, except for Hutto and for Round Rock. Also factor in Leonard Moore, the Notre Dame commit, defensive back, and brand new first-year head coach Cody Moore. So I think Round Rock's the team that, you're probably going to pick them second right now in that district behind Vandergrift, but they're a team that behind Mason Cochran, and like you mentioned, Mason looked incredible in the 7-on-7s. And last Wednesday night, he was on the Flex show with Zach Lazaro, Nolan Hogan. He is confident. He is confident. He has that charisma, and he's there to win. And I like that about a quarterback. He seems locked in and determined, unlike any other athlete we've had in this summer. He's someone that's already locked in, ready for week one.
How about that good luck charm coming on the Wednesday Flex show and winning state 7-on-7?
Maybe if someone comes on this Wednesday night, who knows what happens?
That's right. That's right. The last Wednesday Flex show of the season for the summer until we get to football season is Wednesday at 7. So definitely check that out. They'll be talking a lot about Round Rock getting that win. You can go to flxatx.com to find out all those scores for Round Rock. All right, so as we dig in today, there's a few different things. We'll get to some College World Series, 2 wild games so far with LSU and Florida. And if you're a Longhorn fan, pretty clear, I think, who you're rooting for tonight. We will get into that. Also, just continue to be just more and more good news if you're a Spurs fan. We'll get to that at 12:30. But why don't we get this Texas recruiting stuff out? Because there's a little bit in a couple sports that we need to mention. In terms of football, the Longhorns flex again over the weekend. Last weekend, it was a couple guys getting added to the 24 class. This weekend, it happened again, and the names, you could certainly argue, got even bigger. And one of the big ones is Jarek Gibson, running back out of Florida, was one of the highest-rated guys. In fact, now he's the highest-rated guy in the class, listed as a 4-star, depending on where you're looking. I got him here at 5'11", 207. Ultimately had committed to Florida, but decommitted and now ends up at Texas. He's at IMG Academy. So right now, a verbal commitment to Texas. So Christian Clark, go back to last Thursday, the running back from Arizona, and now Jarek Gibson, the running back from Florida. So, Cameron, there'd been discussions about what Coach Jackson had done at the receiver position and the fact that he just got his first official recruit and all that. But the one thing Texas fans didn't need to be reminded of, that they're happy to be reminded of, is that Tashard Choice can recruit as well, and now he got 2 big dogs in this class.
Remember when Texas fans were worried about Stan Drayton leaving?
Yeah.
Because that's all in the past. What Coach Choice has done, his recruiting prowess so far with Cedric Baxter landing that deal, and now picking up Christian Clark and Jarek Gibson. Gibson was number 1 guy on his board, I think, since he got to Texas. He has always been the guy they wanted to go after. 4.5 40 time Chad. He's not someone that's going to fall down on the first bit of contact. Gets to the outside very well. He's a guy that, you can run a counter with him. You can give the ball to him on toss. You can get him in an open space, and he's going to make guys miss. And he's got speed too. So he's a huge addition for Coach Choice. And, I mean, like you mentioned, like, he's someone that no matter who Texas takes at running back, Choice recruit him. Cool. I don't care. Yeah, he's from Alaska. That's great. That's fine. Yeah, he was training in the Husky races. Great. Yep, sounds good.
He's just wrestling a moose up there.
Yeah,
that's what he's doing.
Mud wrestling is his high school activity. Sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's a little more compact than Christian Clark.
Yeah.
When I watched that film last week, I mentioned I think the comparison to Bijan Robinson in terms of the body style and the way he presents himself on film.
It's a big comparison, Chad. I saw that too, and I was like,
no,
whoa.
It is, but I get it. I mean, when you just see there's elements of it where you go, oh, okay, a little more of an upright runner as well. Listed here at 6 feet 200, and then with Gibson, you're talking about 5'11", 207, so a little more of a compact package there. But I like what you said about, not going down on first contact, physicality, dragging guys down the field. So it's a little more of that. And even though it's a really interesting development here, watching Bijan get drafted where he was drafted, you can't think that can't hurt.
No.
The arguments that Sark is trying to make for running backs. And the other thing is, if I'm a running back, the one thing I know for sure about Steve Sarkisian, if I'm the parents, if I'm the athlete, I ain't getting overworked at Texas. We know that. There's an issue coming up about carries, and do you give them the carries at the right time and all of that. But you're not going to – nobody's going to come think, man, Steve Sarkisian's just going to hand me the ball 30, 35 times and try to destroy me. We know that's not the case. So these guys do feel versatile, and then if you're a Longhorn fan, it's the good news and then the possible bracing for – not bad news, but bracing for the inevitable. The great news is Tashard Choice is building relationships with these players. I see quotes throughout the weekend of how important it is with Coach Choice and what he's telling parents and how comfortable parents are with him and all that kind of stuff. I think it was Gibson's dad that I read the quote from where he said, hey, I told Tashard Choice, I want to be comfortable sending my kid here. I want to make that when I drop him off, I don't want to have to worry about anything. And he feels like Choice has built that relationship. All that's the terrific news. Now, Cameron, the backside of it's going to be at what point does Tashard Choice start to get love as maybe a OC? Is it an OC somewhere? Is it a head coaching job somewhere? But until then, that's naturally going to happen maybe at some point if he's a badass. But yeah, if you're a Texas fan, you just enjoy this right now.
He's probably on that Brendan Marion path where you would think an OC position is likely considering how good he is recruiting. Now, to retort to that is, well, Sarks hasn't missed yet, I think, on a coaching hire with Jackson, with Choice filling in for Stan Drayton. But, time will tell with Chris Jackson. He's a great recruiter so far that we've seen. Now, the one quote from Jarek's dad that really stood out in the Horns 247 article, when you have 3 players get drafted, 2 in the first round, and Roschon Johnson, you can't go wrong with that. It's a direct quote from Jarek Gibson's dad. That's a great recruiting pitch. Like, hey, we live in an NFL era where running backs are undervalued now. They're not going to go in the first round. I just had one go in the top 10 picks. NFL teams aren't drafting running backs like they used to anymore. But hey, one of mine did. That's an incredible recruiting pitch that, you had Penn State and Ohio State could only offer in the last, 10, 15 years? I mean, and maybe LSU with Edward Tolaire, who went the very end of the first round, but he went top 10. We've only seen 2 running backs, I believe, Ezekiel Elliott in 2016 and Saquon in 2018, right? Done that.
Yeah. And then Chris Bennett, our man CB, just texted the reminder that he had 2 running backs drafted in the first round, Bijan and Gibbs.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
Gibbs.
The idea to have those 2 guys, that is crazy. I apologize if that's what you just said. I was reading a text there. Did I just repeat exactly what you said?
I didn't say Gibbs by name, but the quote was basically his dad saying that. Like,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
We're good. We're on the same page, Chad. We're good.
I'm just making sure.
Working out the kinks for filling each other out.
And I got text rolling in here, and the folks are helping out as always. Somebody texted in, are y'all going to speak about Ivan Melendez getting a cycle? I didn't realize Melendez hit it for the cycle.
He also, I believe, broke the Hillsboro Hops record for most home runs in a season with 15, which isn't like an incredible stat, but he's only been there for 2-3 months, and he's already broken home run record at 15 on the year. He's a guy that I believe their AAA team is the Sod Poodles out in Amarillo. Wouldn't be surprised if Melendez is in Amarillo by the end of the season, the way he's been hitting.
Very nice. Yeah, that's cool. We'll definitely mention that. So that bit of recruiting news with Jarrett Gibson was certainly big, and if you didn't know, his offer list included a lot of big names. We mentioned he was committed to Florida at one point, but, I mean, it's everybody. It's Florida, it's Bama, it's Georgia,
LSU.
Right, LSU, A&M, Oklahoma. I mean, everybody that you'd want to have on a list. So he verbally commits to Texas, and then an offensive lineman committed over the weekend as well. Nate Kibble, offensive lineman. When you see Humble, Texas, it might be Atascocita, and this one is Atascocita. Listed here at 6'2", 306, a big dog on that offensive line. And this is always big. I would tell you, if you're a Texas fan, you win this battle against A&M. This was one of those head-up, house-divided decisions. He picked Texas over Texas A&M. To me, Cameron, that's that first level. If I'm a Texas fan, I want to beat A&M and Oklahoma for interior guys. Then the next level up is I want to beat LSU for interior guys, and then you go up to I want to beat Bama and Georgia for interior guys.
Yeah, the last couple of years, when you get in these recruiting battles against like the SEC schools, it's like if you lose, in the back of your mind, like, okay, at least we don't have to see him. That's gone now, right? With the Jarrett Gibson recruitment, if you don't win that, he's going to end up at Alabama or Georgia. He's the guy that if you don't secure the recruitment, you're going to be playing against him the next few years, and that's huge for guys in the trenches, right? Especially with Nate Kibble, he's a big dude. 6'2", 315, Chad. That fits
315.
in.
I was just seeing 306. I saw a trimmed down weight. 315, even better.
247 has him at 315.
Nice.
Who could say with the weight fluctuation? But that's a guy that fits into that big body philosophy of Sark and Coach Flood that they want to build. And as you mentioned, if you don't get him, you're going to be going up against him in the SEC in a few years. So that's when those recruiting battles get even bigger, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point, too. I hadn't even really thought of it that way. But, yeah, the fact that you, Texas, and Oklahoma are going into the SEC, those battles just get even more ramped up. And as far as the battles with A&M, we said for years now, decade plus, oh, yeah, that's the battle you got to win because there are no other battles. Now you're working towards not only does that football game come back, but you're right. You lose a kid to Florida, guess what? You're probably going to end up in the next couple of years, you got to deal with it. If you lose a kid to Arkansas, you lose a kid to, whatever the school is, you're going to have to face them. So both of those are big for Texas. That's 7 total commitments in the 2024 class. And then also I was reading notes from over the weekend about the Colin Simmons visit. That seems to be down to Texas and LSU for a lot of people. An interesting move by both these schools. Texas just has him in for the visit. He apparently didn't give anybody any indications one way or the other, but LSU has their official visit scheduled for November.
Yeah.
Some people thinking that's a genius move. Some people thinking it may be too late by then, because obviously that's right at a month before the first signing period, now the signing period for a lot of the guys. So we'll see how that works. But certainly nothing to make you think Colin Simmons isn't interested in Texas. It's Texas and LSU right now for the big dog defensive end out of Duncanville.
Yeah, I think the crystal ball in 247 has a 50-50 Texas LSU. If you follow Colin Simmons on social media, a lot of good positive Texas stuff. It sounds like as soon as he got there, he was enamored with what they were doing. He's a kid that I saw did a couple of his games, Chad, in the playoff run for Duncanville. There's some times in high school sports, I think, as kids are developing 3, 4-star, 5 stars, like you'll go a game and you won't really notice them, right? Because they're still, maybe they're dealing with double teams, but they're still developing, right? Colin Simmons was a guy from the first play, you knew where he was because the way he would impact games. I mean, against the Woodlands over at the field, he dominated their offensive line. And through their playoff run as a junior, Colin Simmons was a guy that, I would turn around and be like, man, he's someone that Texas needs to circle. And I'm glad they're really going after his recruitment. And as Puts number 13 responded on the Specs text line talking about Nate Kibble, he's from Atascocita. Did I say that right?
Atascocita.
Still learning, guys. I'm sorry. Atascocita. That's a area that Texas has not done a great job recruiting, right? In the last decade. Yeah. Can say the same thing about Duncanville. Those are 2 huge football factories that Texas really hadn't got into until Kelvin Banks last year, offensive line, and now Nate Kibble. So it seems like Sark has really developed these relationships with a lot of these big high school football factories that have produced a lot of kids that have gone everywhere but Austin.
Yeah, that's big. You're right. That's a huge part of it, too. Yeah, Texas hasn't always had the claws in the Dallas area. That would be huge to get a guy like that. Because, again, when you look at the difference between what Texas is doing right now and what a Bama and Georgia are doing, that's what everybody wants to be. Even in Ohio State, go to the top level, go to the teams that are in the playoff. Man, they are blocking and tackling the hell out of people. And specifically on defense, there's a weapon you got to deal with. There's a couple of them you got to deal with. Texas has had some good defensive fronts. We've seen guys here and there give you flashes, but have they had that, nationally recognized 4 to 5 star monster that everybody knows about day one? Maybe not. Certainly not at the level of those other schools. That's where they're trying to go. Colin Simmons is that kind of name.
Look at what Georgia did this last 2 years defensive line, right? How many of those guys went in the first, second round? I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles' entire defensive line is coming from Georgia, right? Jordan Davis.
Are they really, Cameron? Thank you for reminding me of that.
I'm just saying, like, as you know very well as an A&M fan, you've been in this conference since, for about 10 years.
That was as a Cowboys fan. I was reacting to that one.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
There's a lot of ways we could go in that direction.
God. Yeah, no, you're right. No, it's terrifying. As every guy that was badass in red and black is apparently going to be badass in green now for the Philadelphia Eagles. But huge recruiting stuff for Texas there. Also, there's a recruiting story for Texas on the basketball side. We will get to that. Plus, just more good news if you are a Spurs fan coming off of the draft and College World Series. It all comes down to one game tonight. And to me, if you're a Texas baseball fan, pretty clear who you're rooting for tonight. We'll talk about that on the Horn. We need more cowbell on a Monday. And we're getting started on this Monday. Zay is on his honeymoon. Hope everybody that's on a little break this week has a great, relaxing time. Stay cool out there wherever you are. Maybe you're getting away from all this hot weather. That would be a good idea, too. Cam, I do not recognize it. Who is this?
Oh, come on, Chad. You definitely do.
Do I?
Little mid 2000s, kind of a little rock, poppy.
I mean, just without hearing a vocal, it sort of has a... Oh, wait a minute.
There we go.
Oh. Easy now. The only thing I thought of the Killers to start with.
Okay.
But
in the right direction.
No. This sounds like Jack. Is this like White Stripes?
No,
like
it's not Jack White. It is The Rapture.
Oh, no, I wasn't coming up with that.
Okay.
The Rapture.
House of Jealous Lovers. Kind of little Talking Heads vibe.
Yeah.
They were a screamo band.
Yeah, kind of like Talking Heads and the Killers had a baby, maybe.
Yeah.
The Rapture. What's the name of the song again?
House of Jealous Lovers.
That's a good title.
It's a good song. It's a good pump you up song.
That's good. I got to check them out. I don't know a lot about The Rapture, but a good energetic way to start this show today. A lot of high energy if you're a Texas football fan. We talked about the great recruiting news there. We've also got some Texas basketball recruiting news to talk about. As long as we're into basketball, we'll get to Mr. Wimbenyama in a second. But the good Texas news is a good basic name that you hope will be far more interesting than that. He is Chris Johnson. He is a combo guard, started in Texas in a way, went to high school in Texas, had originally committed to Kansas, but then decommits and ends up at Texas. He is now a part of the 23 class, and Cameron, correct me if I'm wrong, he's now the only member of the 23 class, right after what happened with why am I losing it? A.J. Johnson
and Ron Holland,
right? So now he is the member of the 23 class coming in.
Yeah, was like Ron Holland's situation. He was signed his letter of intent to Kansas, got released by it, which, a different conversation is what's the point of these letters if players can just be released from it. But I digress. Ends up coming to Texas. He's a 4-star, 6'4" combo guard, Chad. Comes from the same high school, I believe, as Dylan Mitchell, Monteverde Academy, or if I have that right. Forgive me if I don't.
No, I think you got it right.
He's a guy that he probably won't get a lot of playing time this season, but I think it's good to have someone, at least some incoming freshman, because, with Tyrese Hunter and Max Asmith, there are two guys, Chad, that this is probably their last year playing college basketball, right? You have Kendall Weaver coming in. He is a sophomore. Now, he could also theoretically jump to the draft or professional-wise. So there's a chance that, going into 2024, right, there might not be a single guard on the roster. So I think it's important for Ronnie Terry to at least get someone in there, right, to develop, also insurance policy, injuries happen and whatnot. Now, of course, the roster can look completely different with the transfer portal, as we have seen from last year to this year. But it's good to have at least some freshmen on the roster, I think, to help develop, to come in to learn the offense, to learn the staff. And who knows? He's a kid that he definitely can project to be a really good college basketball player. But it's good to have, just in case, I think, for 2024, because who knows what the roster is going to look like, as we've seen. It's also a kid, unlike Ron Holland and A.J. Johnson, they had NBA. That was on their mind, right? They're going to play 1 year and then jump to the NBA. This is a kid who's going to stick around at least for probably 2 years collegiately.
2 years in college basketball?
Isn't that crazy, right?
Can you do that consecutively?
Imagine if the CBA allowed that to happen.
No, you don't mean at the same place. You mean a year and then transfer, right?
No,
you mean
2 years in Austin,
Same place? Really?
Weird.
That's exciting.
It's like what Brock Cunningham's done. He's been here for 15 years.
That's right. That's true. That's true. He was here. Rick Barnes' first year, he and Brock Cunningham came in together. A lot of people don't know that.
When Tom Petters was the head coach, Brock actually.
That's right. He was coming to camps back then. Chris Johnson, part of the Texas basketball team now, the 23 class, so he'll be able to contribute this season. That's big news if you're a Texas fan. And then if you are a Texas fan and a San Antonio Spurs fan, or maybe you're just a Spurs fan, just continues to be more and more good news. I tweeted out over the last few days, even as a Mavs fan. Everything I see from Victor Wembanyama, I smile, I laugh, I like the kid more. Just everything is lining up. And then, if you hear this as a Spurs fan, you got to love it. Victor Wembanyama now will not play in the FIBA World Cup. He's going to prep for his time with the Spurs. He still says he's going to play a little bit in the Summer League. He wants to prep for the Spurs. And then remember, the Olympics are in Paris in 24. So there's no way he's not going to want to play for France there. But he did the number crunching. He realized last year he played in 62 games. This next 2-year period, he is estimating he'll play in 170 games. And I think that's without the World Cup. So either way, either he figured out that's what it would be with the World Cup and he says, I'm out, or maybe he's estimating those Olympic games and thinking, wait a second, this is just going to be too much. So remember, he's a unique guy. He's talked about it. He's a unique guy with unique workouts and unique training regimens. So now he's going to sit out the World Cup. That's exciting to me if I'm a Spurs fan.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he said before he was drafted he wanted to play in the FIBA Basketball Cup this season, this summer. And probably the Spurs organization was like, hey, man, you're going to put a lot of miles on yourself. Let's take it easy, you know. Maybe play a few games in the Summer League and then focus on the Olympics next season. Because he's someone that, it's kind of weird, Chad. He likes to play basketball. We don't really see that a lot from a lot of athletes now.
He likes basketball guys.
It's like, you know, I mean, we've seen a lot, even with the USA athletes, where it's like, oh, it's the Olympics. I don't know. I don't know if I really want to play. Like, I got to play basketball in the summer. I got to play in June and July. Are you kidding me? No. Like, this kid, and what I love about him is that he wants to hoop. Like with Kevin Durant, he's a hooper. He cares about playing. He loves to play. He loves to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's big because now Kawhi Leonard wasn't a number 1 draft pick. You know, he kind of came in on the radar and they developed him. But Kawhi's a guy that, you know, I don't know. I don't know if he has the same passion to play, you know, summer ball and to play for his country like Wembanyama does. And now, of course, you know, he doesn't have the same personality as Wembanyama, but at least with Wemby, it does seem like he wants to win. He wants to play. And the way that he already has a dinner with Duncan and Robinson and Manu, I mean.
Yeah, you've seen this picture going around,
love
man.
That.
Spurs fans are eating this up. Sean Elliott's in that photo as well. And he's towering over all of them. I mean, he makes Tim Duncan look normal sized in that picture.
Yeah. And someone in the Specs text, I was like, yeah, for all those who were doubting his height, which, I mean, like, why are you doubting a 7'5" guy's height? Like, oh, he's actually 7'4". Like, really? Oh, wow. The 1 inch is going to make a huge difference. But he is a large human being. If you he's going to make 6'7" guys look average.
Right. Oh, yeah. A guy that's like LeBron's height is going to look like just sort of normal compared to him. And, yeah, again, if you're a Spurs fan here, you're loving it. Somebody texted, go Spurs, go, baby, while we were talking about it. But, I mean, the only thing that feels like it could stop this train right now is foot injuries, is issues. Is there anything with a 7'5" guy? So that's why I think this story is big here at the beginning, to know that he's not going to put any extra wear and tear on it. Because I'm with you, Cam. I like the idea that he likes to play ball as well. But when you are 7'5" and you're this freaky, the last thing you want to hear is some rando moment of, yeah, Wemby was out there playing with some kids in France, or Wemby was over there to pick up game over, you know, wherever, and something goes down. That's the last thing you want.
And that's what happened with my guy Chet Holmgren last year, right? You play the Summer League, but then he gets a weird injury playing just in a pro-am in Portland on a weird basketball court. And, like, you know, you're hopeful because, you know, Chet's been someone that's been able to avoid injuries for most of his career, but he gets that Liz Frank injury. That's scary. As a big guy, you want to be precautious because you don't want him to end up like Bill Walton, where it's like, yeah, he's a great player, but he can never stay healthy. And I think that's definitely factoring into the decision for the Spurs to kind of like limit what he can do, because, I mean, he's going to be special.
So, we were mentioning the vacations around the building here. Our man Patrick Davis from the afternoon show, he just got back from vacation, and the Spurs got Wembanyama. Like, he's really enjoying his time. While he was off last week, the Spurs officially got Wembanyama, and I'm sure he'll be extra smiling today once we get to 3 o'clock. So that big news in the world of basketball. Also, tonight we will wrap up college baseball one way or the other. And if you're a Texas Longhorn baseball fan, pretty simple. If you're on the historical side, you want to root for Florida tonight because LSU has 6 national titles, just like your Longhorns do. And if you don't want them to pass you, you need Florida to win the game tonight. If you don't know the tote board, USC's at 12. Texas and LSU are at 6. Then it falls off after that. The SEC has accounted for, at this moment, 14 national titles. Six from LSU. Vanderbilt's got 2. South Carolina's got 2. And then Florida, Georgia, and the 2 Mississippi schools each have 1. That's the split. So once Texas is in the SEC.
Do you count it?
Well, I'm saying once Texas is in, the SEC technically would have, what's that going to be? 12. It's going to be 21 no matter what happens tonight. It'll be 21 combined titles once Texas is in. So LSU and Florida, 2 very different games if you watch Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, an 11-inning affair, another close game, another big homer for Beloso. That kid, if LSU wins, I mean, he's a star anyway. But he and also Tanks White, whatever his name. Tommy White, Tanks White. Yeah, those 2 guys are home run legends forever now. 4-3 and 11. But then Florida comes back yesterday. They get a wild grand slam homer in the 3rd and then just flatten LSU from there. 24-4. 23 hits in the game, 5 homers for Florida. Cameron, that grand slam is one of the weirdest home runs I've ever seen in my life.
Off the bat, I don't think anyone knew it was a home run.
No.
The way he was looking up at the ball. And then even the announcers, like Mike Monaco, like kind of was like, oh, it's going to be a fly ball to, oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, grand slam?
Did you hear,
grand slam?
Did you hear the launch angle?
51?
51 degrees. And the average on every 51-degree angled hit at the College World Series, I don't know about ever or if it was just this year, was like 0.74. That's just getting a hit on that angle, and he got a grand slam out of it, and it crushed LSU for the rest of the game.
And I'm trying to fact check it, but I believe the highest launch angle for a home run before was Giancarlo Stanton and the majors at 49.
Is that right?
So I don't know if he actually broke it. Now, of course, remember the wind was a big factor. It was blowing out yesterday, I think gusting up to 30 miles per hour. And apparently, it's the same way tonight.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured after hearing the wind's going to be a big factor, it was going to be a high-scoring game. Did not expect it to be a football score. Wow. Was not expecting 24 runs.
Just crazy.
And also, they also broke the record for most home runs in the World Series. I believe Texas had the record before in 2009, coincidentally, against LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Florida did that again, or broke the record yesterday. So now I wonder, Chad, if you're at LSU, the head coach, what do you do with Paul Skeens? Because he said he will be available today. But do you start him? Do you he's got to pitch at some point today, right? What would you do with Paul Skeens?
I mean, it would depend on what kind of guy he is. If he's truly a starter, if that's just his entire mindset, then we got to start him and watch him. But if he's more of that bulldog mentality, I'll do anything you need. I'll get you the 6 to 8 biggest outs of this game. Just tell me when they happen. If he's that guy, if he can ramp up quick, then I would try to hold him and do like was it Schilling? I think it was Schilling in 2001 in the World Series. Came in that Game 7. Johnson earlier, and he came in later, and he'd already pitched, and he's just trying to give him something. I just don't know. It depends on which kind of guy Skeens thinks he is, and Coach Johnson believes he is. That's how I would work it. My gut would say you start him if he's that guy. If he's just your badass starter, okay, start him. It's 3 days rest. I get it. But start him and have somebody ready to go.
I got the 5 yesterday. This was before Florida, started putting on their butt whipping. It's got the 5 that LSU did not want to start him. But after last night, I mean, you lose. Obviously you're like, okay, mentality is you're going to forget about this game. We have a new game. But when you lose by almost 20 runs, I feel like that's got to factor into your psyche, right? And I feel like you want a guy who can go out and have that confidence. And it feels like Paul Skeens has probably been the best pitcher this season outside of Rhett Lauder, right? And you can argue it's him, 1 and 2, or Lauder 1, whatever you want to do. It feels like, I don't know, you might have to start Skeens, even though he's coming off 100 in pitches a few nights ago, but he is your best player. He's your best pitcher, and it's now do or die. It's game 3.
This is it. Florida did it again. They did it to Wake, and when it looked like maybe they weren't the best team, they just kept pushing, kept making plays, and then they really put it on LSU. Let's see where the psychology is. That's a great point. I was thinking about that too. It's a 1-run game versus a 20-run game. It counts exactly the same. LSU's got to get themselves in that mindset tonight, and we will see if Skeens goes. So, again, if LSU wins it, they'll get to 7 national titles. By the way, here's the neighborhood you're joining, Longhorn fans. 15 of the last 18 years in Omaha, there's been at least one SEC team in the championship series.
Wow.
15 out of 18. And there have been 4 times when 2 SEC teams met for the championship. How about that? By the way, Texas has done that twice with an SEC team, and Oklahoma did it with one last year. So if you want to put, if Texas and Oklahoma had been in the SEC the last 18 years, it would be 7 of those matchups. So this is absolutely the conference that's in control of college baseball. There's a lot of discussion about football, I know. But remember the conference that Texas and Oklahoma are entering in baseball as well. It's going to be incredible starting with not next baseball season, but starting with the 25 baseball season when Texas and OU are a part of the SEC. Tonight, it's an SEC champion one way or the other, Florida and LSU. They go at 6 o'clock on ESPN. Sit back and enjoy. Coming up at 1:05, back to that great Texas recruiting news over the weekend. Joe Cook, Inside Texas on 3.com, to give us his thoughts on Jarrett Gibson and the other as well, and Kibble, and the class that Texas is putting together. Up next, though, in the crap bag, we'll get you a Dion update plus a Phil update. No, not that Phil. That Phil. This is The Horn. This one's kind of got a Talking Heads feel to it. In a way,
A little bit too, huh?
Yeah. Sounds like it's a little more British than that, though. Who's this?
This is Jack Starber. The song is called Buttercup.
Starber?
Yeah, Stauber.
Okay. Jack Starber. All right.
Because, so, Chad, unlike the Tower, you know Craig's, he's yacht rock.
Uh-huh.
And Jeff is like 90s, 2000s rap. So it's like I have a limited pool of what I can play. With you, I know I can play anything.
You're just stretching here.
I can play Dame Lillard's new rap album, and you would love it.
All right, there you
For
go.
Craig, not so much. He would pull me aside, camera. No, I need Bob Seger now.
I am a music snob, but I try to be as open as I can to music that I don't know. So I'm all about it. Let's do it. Jack Stauber and The Rapture getting us started today. Some good sounds on a sunny day, and it's going to be another hot one. 105, 106, I think the highs for like the first 3 days of the week.
Yeesh.
Another Monday through Wednesday from hell. So please be careful out there. Stay cool and dry if you can. Coming up at 105, we'll talk with Joe Cook of Inside Texas. We do it every Monday about that time. We'll talk recruiting. Big news for Texas. Obviously, Jarrett Gibson and Nate Kibble get added to that 24 class. World's Strongest Man at 1:30, Mark Henry, and he may drop by. Always good to see Mark Henry. We'll talk to him about summer prep as Jacob Henry's getting ready to get going at Vandergrift. Want to get Mark's thoughts on that and just kind of the summer workout time. What do you do when it's 105 degrees outside, and what would he advise, maybe kids doing this time of year to get ready? We are 68 days away from that first big weekend of college football, which means you're even closer to high school football. So we'll try to get some advice on that from Mark Henry. Plus, we never know what we're going to get into with Mark. He loves his Texas Longhorns, but also wanted to catch up with him on a couple other things as we come off of the NBA draft. I know he was excited to check a little bit of that out as well. So we'll talk to Mark at 1:30, Aaron Hogan to talk some baseball. Of course, Aaron of B&E in the morning, 6 to 10 a.m. Aaron's going to jump on with us, talk a little baseball at 2:05. I want to get his thoughts on LSU and Florida. Cameron Parker, nice enough to produce today and for most of this week. I do appreciate his hard work. You'll normally hear Cameron, of course, on Light the Tower, but he's nice enough to hang out with me a little bit this week, and we hope Zay is having a great honeymoon. Let's get into the crap bag here. We sent good wishes, and we'll continue to do that for one of the best personalities in the world of coaching.
Chad's crap bag.
Crap bag. If you need an easy way to remember it, just think of a bag of crap.
Brought to you by AV Consultations, 255-8678, or go to avconsultations.com. And let's send our best again to Deion Sanders. He did have the procedure over the weekend to get the blood clot, a couple different spots on his left leg. They're also going to work on the right leg at some point. They're just trying to get normal blood flow down to his feet. Deion has had a couple toes amputated in the last year or so. So hopefully everything is headed in the right direction for prime time. I do know this. If having a beautiful woman by you to support you, it helps in recovery, Deion's going to be fine.
Yeah. His
fiance is unreal. That is a beautiful woman standing by that bed. Well done, Deion. And I didn't realize he had a fiance at this point. I didn't know his marital status, but apparently about to get married. So hopefully Deion's going to be all right. And something to just keep in mind as we talk about 68 days from now, Colorado at TCU is week 1. So don't forget about that game. Could be a scorcher in Texas around that time at the beginning of September. That's the 11 a.m. Fox kick, the first big Saturday. And guess what follows it? Rice in Texas, 2:30.
Ooh.
So Fox back-to-back is Deion at TCU and Rice at Texas. Just something to keep in mind and maybe circle on your calendar. So all the best to Deion. We hope that situation continues to look up. Cameron, before we get to something else, you said there's a late-breaking news story here?
Got some NBA breaking news for you, Chad.
All right.
So, of course, we got NBA free agency get ready to start. I think July 6th is the first time trades can become official. Well, another trade added to that list. A guy who's been perpetually on the trade block for the last probably 5 years, John Collins, has officially been traded to the Utah Jazz for a trade exception and a second-round pick, along with forward Rudy Gay, who is still playing basketball. So the Utah Jazz acquired John Collins and his $78 million contract, and the Atlanta Hawks dump some of that contract money, get back Rudy Gay, and a mid-level exception, I believe. So the Hawks, who have been, thought to maybe be trading Collins, haven't done it after that huge extension. They might be gearing up for a pretty big move, Chad. This is what that tells me by getting rid of John Collins. In Utah now, what a front court. John Collins, Walker Kessler, who is probably the greatest basketball player of all time, in my opinion, and Lauri Markkanen. Two incredible white guys, and of course I'm white, so I love the Utah Jazz. You have to, I think. And now John Collins. What a front court for Danny Ainge and Will Hardy. So interesting moves all around for both those two teams.
So John Collins to Utah and Rudy Gay to Atlanta.
Yes,
Gotcha.
And Rudy Gay, maybe, who knows if he will end up playing basketball this year. A lot could happen. They could end up, buying him out, releasing him before free agency begins.
NBA free agency, as Cam mentioned, starting in early July. So at that point, the stuff that we've been hearing, all these deals have not been made official yet?
Yeah, I think July 6th is when everything can be official.
Because that's the start of business for the year? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see because, there's a lot of Dame Lillard trade rumors going on. I'm waiting to see what Boston decides to do with Jaylen Brown. It sounds like they're going to end up keeping Jaylen Brown. We just saw the huge Kristaps trade involving Marcus Smart. Draymond Green has to sign somewhere. Where does Dylan Brooks go?
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
You would assume with this news, it seems like the news we've heard around Golden State lately is that Draymond's going to be sticking with them.
You would think so. But the Chris Paul trade is interesting because how does Chris Paul fit into that offense when he's basically the same player offensively as Draymond Green, right? He's not a great shooter.
Right.
Draymond Green has to have the ball in his hands, like Chris Paul. How does that work out? Now, me and Jeff just talked about it. Jeff's anti-Chris Paul. I am pro-Chris Paul.
Oh, okay.
Great high-level IQ basketball player. He's someone that you think would make it work with Steph Curry because Steph Curry's never played with a true point guard, Chad. But how does that work? It's a lot of pieces are going to have to fall in these next few weeks before we fully get a clear picture of where the NBA is going. But it's a big move, I think, all in all for the Hawks, and it sets them up for possibly a bigger trade. But what does that do? I don't know.
Yeah, in some situations, could you have, both Splash Brothers being the runaround screens, catch and shoot kind of guys versus the times when Steph does, control the ball, create the shot, all that, the crazy dribbling and stuff that he can do to create it. Maybe it would free him up a little bit.
Yeah.
A little older, 1 year older down the line. A lot of NBA stuff going on right now. One other quick update I had for you, crap bag wise. I went out searching for Phil over the weekend. Apparently he's not out there yet. For me, that's Phil Steele. I'm a big fan of the Phil Steele magazine. It is not out there yet on the newsstands. I get fooled every year because somebody gets it sent to them.
My cards?
Because I'm not one of those. Right. I'm not one of those that signs up to get it sent to me. I will go physically get it. I'm still an old man that way. So people get it sent to them, and they take a picture of it, and it freaks me out. And I go, oh, my God, Phil's out there.
Time to go. Yeah.
And I'm the old man who doesn't call ahead. I just run over there to see if it's there. Wasn't there, but I'm seeing today that this Friday may very well be the day. May be the newsstand day for Phil Steele, ladies and gentlemen.
So back-to-back weeks, we get Dave Campbell's and then Phil Steele?
I think so. And speaking of Dave Campbell, if you want a copy, remember to check out Light the Tower. I heard the guys give it away today.
Give away 2 of them, Chad.
You gave away 2 today?
Yeah.
Okay. Copies.
2-a-days.
It's 2-a-days, right, for Dave Campbell's
Summer workouts,
as well.
baby.
You can get just listen 10 to 12 every day and listen for that cue to call. You call to get your Dave Campbell magazine. If you don't get it that way, you can always go to hornfm.com and sign up to get one through an online giveaway. So we have all of that happening. So just wanted to remind you about that. If you are into the Phil Steele magazine, I think late this week is when we can expect that. All right, rolling through a Monday here. Coming